After my house was destroyed in a blizzard and my son refused to let me in from the cold, a man I had buried at his own funeral 15 years earlier pulled me from a snowdrift. 3 weeks later, he stopped outside an abandoned warehouse, grabbed my arm, and whispered, "Don't get out." Through the fogged window, I watched my son shaking hands with a scarred man. The moment I reached for the door, he slammed every lock shut and said, "Stay still, your son doesn't know you're alive." And that's the only thing keeping you that way. This story doesn't start easy, but I'm grateful you're here to hear it. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell me, have you ever discovered someone close to you wasn't who you thought they were? Your answer matters more than you know. A quick note. Some details have been fictionalized to strengthen the message. What stays with you is what truly counts. The sound that woke me wasn't rain, it was the rushing angry noise of my roof, deciding to quit after 63 years. I rolled out of bed at 11 p.m. on January 14th, 2023, and felt the floor tilt beneath my feet. At 65, with 37 years as a mechanical engineer behind me, I thought I'd seen every kind of structural failure. I was wrong. The ceiling above my bedroom sagged like wet cardboard, groaning under the weight of what the news was calling a century blizzard. Snow had been falling for 18 hours straight, and now my house was surrendering. I grabbed my coat from the chair and pulled it over my pajamas, my breath fogged white in the bedroom air. That's when the second failure registered. The heater had been silent for hours. I could see my breath indoors in January in New Hampshire, which meant the furnace had quit sometime while I slept. I reached for the bedside phone to call for help. Dead. No dial tone. The landline I'd kept for 40 years because Eleanor always said cell towers fail, in storms gone. I tried the lamp. Nothing. I flipped the wall switch. Darkness. 3 systems, the heating, the phone, the power. The engineer in me stopped running and started calculating. A furnace can fail, age, maintenance, bad luck. A phone line can go down in a storm. A circuit breaker can trip. But all 3 simultaneously, in the same 6-hour window before a blizzard peaked. That's not weather, that's sabotage. The ceiling cracked again, louder this time, and a chunk of plaster hit the floor near my feet. I didn't have time to figure out who or why. I had maybe 2 minutes before the entire bedroom came down. Eleanor's metal document box sat on the nightstand, 3 years gone, and still protecting me from beyond. I grabbed it, felt the cold steel bite into my palm, and ran. The trust papers were inside, the deed to the house, her life insurance settlement. Everything that mattered after she died, locked in fireproof steel. I made it to the front door as the bedroom ceiling collapsed behind me with a sound like 1,000 bones breaking. Outside, the wind hit me like a fist. -22 degrees, the radio had said that morning. Wind chill somewhere worse. I was wearing flannel pajama pants, a winter coat, and slippers. My car sat buried under 3 feet of snow in the driveway, useless. The nearest neighbor was half a mile down Birchwood Road, and I couldn't see 10 feet through the whiteout. But I knew where I could go. Jason's mansion in Concord Heights was 4 miles south, a 40-minute walk in good weather, maybe an hour in this storm. My son, Jason, 38, impeccably dressed, always composed, living in his $2 million house with heated floors and a backup generator. I started walking. The cold sank through my coat in the first 5 minutes. By 15 minutes, I couldn't feel my fingers. By 30, my face had gone numb, and my beard was frozen solid. I focused on putting one foot in front of the other, clutching Eleanor's document box against my chest like a shield. How does a father walk 40 minutes through a blizzard, believing his son will help him, only to learn he won't even open the door? I reached Jason's mansion at 1 a.m. The house glowed warm through the storm, every window-lit driveway professionally plowed. I climbed the front steps, barely able to bend my frozen knees, and pressed the doorbell with a hand I could no longer feel. The door opened 6 inches. Jason stood there in his tailored gray suit tie, still knotted hair perfect. He looked at me through the gap, like I was a stranger selling something he didn't want. "Jason," I said. My voice came out cracked, shaking. "Son, the roof collapsed. I need help." He didn't move, didn't open the door wider, just stood there backlit by the chandelier in his marble foyer, studying me. Dad, this isn't a good time," he said. His voice was calm, controlled. "Chloe isn't feeling well." From somewhere inside the mansion, I heard her, Chloe's voice, 36, Jason's elegant wife of 4 years, calling out, "Who is it, honey?" Jason didn't turn around, didn't answer her. His eyes stayed locked on mine, and I saw something in them I'd never seen before. Not concern, not love. Something colder. "You need to figure this out yourself," he said. "You're 65 years old, Dad. It's time you learn to handle your own problems." I stood there shivering so hard, I could barely stand holding Eleanor's document box against my chest, staring at my son. The son I'd raised. The son I'd sent to private school, paid for college, helped with his first house down payment. The son who was looking at me like I was an inconvenience. "Jason, I'm freezing," I said. "Please. I'm sure you'll figure something out." His hand moved to the door. "Good night, Dad." The door closed. I heard the deadbolt slide into place. Through the mansion's frosted glass, I saw Jason's silhouette turn away from the door, walk across the foyer, and settle back into his leather chair in the living room. He raised a wine glass, took a sip, didn't look back. I stood there on his front porch in negative 22-degree wind, my beard frozen to my face, my fingers numb inside Eleanor's document box, understanding for the first time in my life that my son wanted me gone. The blizzard howled around me. The lights inside Jason's mansion glowed warm and safe, and I had nowhere left to go. What I didn't know yet was how long he'd been planning it or who was helping him. I made it 2 miles down Route 93 before my legs stopped working. The mansion door had closed at 1 a.m. I'd turned away from that warm glow Eleanor's document box still clutched against my chest and started walking south because there was nowhere else to go. The wind came at me sideways, full of ice and rage. I couldn't feel my feet anymore, couldn't feel my hands. The cold had moved past pain into something worse, a numbness that felt like sleep trying to pull me down. At 2 a.m., my right knee buckled, then my left. I went down into a snowdrift at the side of the road and couldn't get back up. The snow felt almost warm against my face. That's how I knew I was dying. Hypothermia tricks you at the end, makes freezing feel like a heated blanket. I'd read about it once in an engineering journal. Mountain climbers found stripped naked in the snow because their brains told them they were burning up. I closed my eyes, thought about Eleanor, wondered if she'd be waiting or if I'd just stop and that would be all. Then I heard the engine. Headlights cut through the blizzard, bright and close. A truck, big one from the sound, pulled onto the shoulder 20 feet from where I lay. The door opened, boots crunched through snow. I, Arthur Morgan, Jesus Christ, Arthur, Shakizi. The voice was familiar, impossible, but familiar. I forced my eyes open and saw a man's face leaning over me, gray beard, weathered skin eyes I'd last seen at a funeral 15 years ago. "Vincent," the word came out slurred. "You're dead. I stood at your grave." The man who pulled me from the snowdrift that night was Vincent Caldwell, 65, gray-bearded, driving a black F-35, a ghost I'd mourned at his funeral in 2008. "I know you did," Vincent said, and his hand slid under my arms, lifting. "I'm sorry, Arthur. We'll talk, but first we get you warm, or you'll join me for real." He was strong for a dead man, stronger than I remembered. He half-carried, half-dragged me to the truck and shoved me into the passenger seat. Heat blasted from the vents so intense it burned against my frozen skin. Vincent climbed behind the wheel and gunned the engine, pulling back onto Route 93 heading north. I'd cried at Vincent's funeral. In 2008, stood beside Betty, his wife, as they lowered an empty casket into frozen ground. She'd told me Vincent died in a car accident downstate. Closed casket, no body viewing. I'd never questioned it. "Betty," I managed through chattering teeth. "Does she know?" Vincent's jaw tightened. "Betty died 6 years ago. Cancer." "You weren't there?" "No." "Why, tomorrow morning," he said. "Right now, you need to stay awake. Talk to me." "What happened tonight?" I told him. The roof, the sabotage, Jason's door closing in my face. Vincent's knuckles went white on the steering wheel, but he didn't interrupt. Just drove, eyes fixed on the road jaw, working like he was grinding his teeth. We turned off Route 93 onto a Forest Service road I'd never noticed in 40 years of living in Concord. The truck climbed through pine trees for 20 minutes, headlights cutting tunnels through falling snow. No streetlights, no houses, nothing but wilderness. Finally, Vincent pulled up to a small cabin, set back in the trees, single-story, rough cedar siding, chimney trailing thin smoke. He killed the engine. "That's where are we?" I asked. 12 miles outside Concord," Vincent said. "No one knows about this place. Keep it that way." Inside the cabin was small but warm. A wood stove crackled in the corner. Vincent wrapped me in wool blankets and sat me in a chair near the heat, then disappeared into the kitchen. I heard a pot clang, water running, the hiss of a gas burner igniting. While he worked, I looked around. Maps covered the walls, street grids, building layouts, surveillance routes, red pins marked intersections. Blue circles highlighted buildings I didn't recognize. A police scanner sat silent on a shelf beside the wood stove, its display dark but ready. Locked metal cabinets lined one wall. What kind of man builds a life this hidden maps? Scanners locked cabinets 12 miles from civilization. Vincent returned with a mug of soup chicken broth, hot enough to scald. He pressed it into my hands. "Drink," he said. Slowly, I drank. The heat spread through my chest, pushed back the cold. My fingers started to ache as feeling returned. A good sign, Vincent said. Meant the tissue wasn't dead yet. "You let me grieve you," I said between sips. "Betty grieved you? Why?" Vincent sat down across from me, his face shadowed in the lamplight. He'd aged since I'd last seen him. Deeper lines around his eyes, gray in his beard, where there'd been black. But his eyes were the same, sharp, watchful. "And I had to disappear," he said. "If I'd stayed, I would have died for real, and people I cared about would have died with me." "What people?" "You, Betty, others." "Who wanted you dead?" Vincent stood up and walked to the window, staring out at the falling snow. "Someone I used to work with, someone who decided I knew too much." "Work with Vincent, you were an insurance adjuster." He laughed short, bitter. "That's what I told people, made it easier." "Then what were you really—" Vincent turned back to face me. "Tomorrow morning," he said, "right now you need to sleep, or hypothermia will finish what the cold started. There's a bed through that door. We'll talk at sunrise." I wanted to argue, wanted answers. But exhaustion hit me like a wave, and I could barely keep my eyes open. Vincent helped me to the small bedroom single bed, clean sheets window looking out into pine trees. As I lay down still wrapped in blankets, I noticed a photograph on the shelf beside the police scanner. The image was faded, maybe 20 years old. It showed Vincent younger, clean-shaven, standing outside what looked like a courthouse. He was shaking hands with a broad-shouldered man in a dark suit. The other man's left hand rested on Vincent's shoulder in a gesture that looked almost friendly. But what caught my attention was the scar on that hand, distinctive pale against tanned skin, running from the man's thumb all the way down to his wrist. I tried to ask Vincent who he was, tried to form the words. But my eyes closed and sleep took me under before I could speak. By morning, I'd learned that scar belonged to the man who'd made Vincent disappear and who now controlled my son. I woke to the smell of black coffee and 15 years of unanswered questions. Sunlight cut through the cabin's small window, bright against fresh snow. My body ached, muscles stiff from hypothermia, fingers still tender where frostbite had nearly taken hold. But I was alive, wrapped in wool blankets in a dead man's cabin, and nothing about that made sense. Vincent sat at the kitchen table, 2 mugs of coffee steaming in front of him. He'd shaved since last night, the gray beard trimmed close, making him look almost like the man I'd known before his funeral. Almost. "You're awake," he said. "Good. Thought I might have saved you just to lose you to pneumonia." I sat up slowly, joints protesting. "I stood at your funeral, Vincent. Betty sobbed through the entire service. You let us bury an empty casket. Why—" Vincent pushed one of the coffee mugs toward me. "I'll tell you everything," he said. "But first, let's talk about Jason. When did you see it change?" "Don't deflect," I said. "You owe me 15 years of answers." "And I'll give them to you." Vincent's voice was calm, steady. "But your son closed the door on you last night in negative 22-degree weather. That's not normal, Arthur. That's not cold feet or a bad mood. That's calculated. So, tell me, when did you first notice him becoming someone different?" I wanted to argue, wanted to grab Vincent by the collar and demand to know how a man fakes his death, leaves his wife to grieve alone, and then shows up 15 years later like it was all some kind of magic trick. But the question hung there, impossible to ignore. 4 years ago, I said finally. Maybe 5. He started asking about my finances, bank accounts, Eleanor's trust arrangements, retirement funds. Said he was helping me plan for the future, making sure everything was structured properly. Vincent leaned forward. "And you told him—" "He's my son. Of course I told him." What exactly did you tell him?" I wrapped my hands around the coffee mug, felt the heat seep into my still cold fingers. Eleanor had set up a trust before she died, $5.8 million from her parents' estate life insurance property holdings. She'd structured it with 37 different clauses, spent 6 months with lawyers making it bulletproof. The money was supposed to pass to Jason after I died, but I controlled it until then. Vincent's eyes narrowed. Jason knew the amount. I showed him the documents. He said he wanted to understand his inheritance, make sure I wasn't being taken advantage of by financial advisors. What else changed? I took a sip of coffee, black bitter strong enough to strip paint. 3 years ago, he stopped inviting me to visit. Always had excuses, work trips, renovations. Chloe wasn't feeling well. We went from weekly dinners to monthly phone calls. And 2 years ago, he mentioned a memory doctor. Said it was just routine that people my age should get cognitive testing. I went once. Dr. Harold Reeves' fancy office downtown asked me questions about dates and sequences, had me draw clocks and remember word lists. Vincent set down his mug. Did you go back? 3 times. Jason scheduled the appointments, said the doctor wanted to track my baseline cognitive function. After the 3rd visit, Jason mentioned I'd scored poorly on some of the tests. Said the doctor was concerned about early dementia. And you believed him. I looked at Vincent, really looked at him. The man had faked his death for 15 years, lived in a cabin full of maps and police scanners, and now he was asking me about my son like he already knew the answers. Why would a man who'd been dead for 15 years care about the exact timeline of my son's behavior? I asked. Vincent didn't blink. Because patterns tell stories, and your son's pattern looks like someone building a case. A case for what? Incompetence, cognitive decline, a legal argument to take control of a $5.8 million trust. The coffee turned sour in my mouth. Jason wouldn't. Your son closed the door on you last night and went back to his wine glass, Vincent said. What wouldn't he do? I wanted to argue, wanted to defend Jason, to say Vincent was wrong, that there had to be another explanation. But I kept seeing that frosted glass door closing, kept hearing Jason's voice saying it was time I learned to handle my own problems. He runs a fund, I said quietly. Morgan Capital Partners. Started it 6 years ago downtown. I never understood the business. He said it was private equity venture capital, things beyond my expertise. He had investors I never met. Vincent went very still. Oh, what? I asked. He put down his coffee cup slowly, carefully, like it might shatter if he moved too fast. His jaw had gone tight, the muscle working beneath his newly trimmed beard. Say that name again, he said. His voice had changed, stripped to something flat and cold I'd never heard from him before. It's Morgan Capital Partners, I repeated. Why? Vincent stood up and walked to the window, staring out at the snow-covered pines. His hands gripped the windowsill, knuckles white. How long has he had that fund? 6 years. He started it in 2017, right after he married Chloe. Said her family had connections to investors, people with serious capital, looking for her family. Vincent turned to face me. Chloe's family. What do you know about them? Not much. She said they were from Boston, originally some kind of import-export business. I met her parents once at the wedding, didn't talk much. Why? Vincent crossed the small cabin in 3 strides and picked up the photograph I'd seen last night, the one with him and the scarred man shaking hands. At this man, Vincent said, holding up the photo. Did you see him at Jason's wedding? SP. I looked at the image, the broad-shouldered man in the dark suit, his left hand on Vincent's shoulder, the distinctive scar running from thumb to wrist. I don't know, I said. Maybe there were a lot of people there. Vincent set the photo down. His jaw was still tight, his eyes dark. Love Morgan Capital Partners. He said again like he was testing the words. Jesus Christ, Arthur, your son didn't just marry into money. He married into a network. What network? Vincent looked at me, and for the first time since he'd pulled me from that snowdrift, I saw something in his eyes that looked like fear. At the one that made me disappear, he said. Vincent handed me a burner phone and said 3 words, don't say anything. He'd pulled it from one of the locked metal cabinets while I was still processing what he'd said about the network. My hands were shaking from the cold, from exhaustion, from the slow-building horror of understanding that my son's fund wasn't just connected to Vincent's disappearance. It was part of it. Call Jason's landline, Vincent said. The house phone, not his cell. Then put it on speaker and stay completely silent. Why? Because people say things on landlines they'd never say on cells. And because Jason thinks you're dead in a snowdrift somewhere. I dialed the number I'd called 1,000 times over 30 years. It rang 3 times before someone picked up. Hello, Chloe's voice, sharp and patient. I opened my mouth. Vincent's hand clamped over my wrist, shaking his head. Silence on both ends of the line. Then I heard Jason's voice in the background. Who is it? I don't know, Chloe said. They're not talking. Footsteps. the sound of Jason taking the phone from her. "Hey, hello," Jason said. Pause. "Is someone there?" More silence. I could hear my own breathing tried to quiet it. Then Chloe's voice again, angry now, not bothering to move away from the receiver. "Why didn't you tell me he was coming last night if he asks about the account?" "He doesn't know anything," Jason said. His voice had dropped lower, but the phone still picked it up. "Just keep playing the concerned daughter-in-law. We're almost done." "Almost done? My dad said the deadline is the end of February. We can't afford mistakes." My dad. Chloe said my dad, not my father. Not a name like it was a title, a position of power. "I know the deadline," Jason said. "Everything's on schedule. The doctor's reports are filed. The cognitive assessments are documented, and by the time—" He stopped. Complete silence. Then Jason's voice very quiet. "Someone's listening." The line went dead. I stared at the burner phone in my hand like it had bitten me. Vincent took it, gently powered it down, removed the battery. "They know," I said. "They know someone heard." "Yes, they suspect," Vincent corrected. "Could have been a telemarketer, a wrong number, a glitch. But yes, they'll be more careful now." I stood up, legs unsteady. Jason said doctor's reports and cognitive assessments. He's been building documentation, medical evidence that I'm incompetent, Vincent finished. Unable to manage your own affairs, which would give him legal grounds to petition for conservatorship over Eleanor's trust. The coffee I'd drunk earlier turned sour in my stomach. And Chloe's father, this deadline. What are they planning? Vincent walked to the largest of the locked cabinets and pulled a key from his pocket. "I need to show you something. Should have shown you 15 years ago, but I was dead and you were safe, and that seemed like enough." He opened the cabinet. Inside were files, dozens of them, neatly labeled, stacked in rows, surveillance photos, court documents, and clipped to the inside of the cabinet door, a badge. Federal Bureau of Investigation. The name on the badge read, Vincent Caldwell, Special Agent. "You weren't an insurance adjuster," I said. Vincent pulled out a thick file folder, set it on the kitchen table. "I was head of the Anti-Money Laundering Task Force. We spent 4 years building a case against the Varro organization, New England's financial arm for organized crime. Drug money, extortion, human trafficking, all of it laundered through legitimate businesses." He opened the folder. The first page was a surveillance photo, a warehouse, nighttime, several men loading trucks. One man stood out, broad-shouldered, dark suit, his left hand bearing a scar I'd seen twice before. Marco Varro, 62, stood in that warehouse surveillance photo, like a ghost from Vincent's past, the man whose hand I'd already memorized from the photograph on Vincent's shelf, the man who'd made my friend fake his own death. "We were this close," Vincent said, holding his thumb and forefinger an inch apart. "Had informants wire transfers shell company documentation. Then my partner, Agent David Torres, missed a check-in. 48 hours later, they found him with 3 bullets in his chest." Vincent's hands shook slightly as he held the surveillance photo of his dead partner, a man named in files I wouldn't read, who died so Vincent could live. "The informant had been compromised," Vincent continued. "Varro knew we were coming. Torres died because I trusted the wrong person, and I would have been next if I hadn't disappeared." "So you faked your death." "The Bureau helped. New identity, new location, enough money to survive. I was supposed to stay dead until Varro was behind bars." Vincent's laugh was bitter. "Except, we never got him. He went legitimate, bought up businesses, hired lawyers, cleaned his operation until there was nothing left to prosecute. By 2010, Marco Varro was a respected businessman, with politicians in his pocket and a daughter studying at Boston College." "Chloe," I said. Vincent nodded. "Chloe Varro. She married your son 6 years ago, and a year later, Morgan Capital Partners opened its doors with funding from companies Varro owns through 17 different shell corporations." He pulled another photo from the folder, this one a newspaper clipping, newer, printed on glossy paper. "And this is from 2019, Vincent said. "Charity event downtown, $500 a plate, mayor in attendance, all very respectable." The photograph showed a ballroom full of people in formal wear. In the center, shaking hands with the mayor, stood a broad-shouldered man in a tuxedo. His right hand was extended for the handshake. His left hand rested casually in his pocket. But even in the newspaper's black and white print, I could see it, that hand. The one from Vincent's photograph. The one I would have recognized anywhere. Marco Varro. And standing beside him, one arm around Varro's shoulders, grinning like they were old friends, was my son. Jason wore a tuxedo that probably cost more than my first car. His hair was perfectly styled, his smile wide and confident. The caption beneath the photo read, "Morgan Capital Partners, founder Jason Morgan with investor Marco Vero at Children's Hospital fundraiser." Investor, not criminal, not mob boss, not the man who'd killed a federal agent and made Vincent Caldwell disappear. Investor. "He knows," I said quietly. "Jason knows exactly who Vero is." Vincent didn't answer. He didn't need to. The photo said everything. My son hadn't stumbled into Vero's web. He'd walked in willingly shaken hands with a killer and smiled for the cameras. That Jason isn't like this. I said it like a prayer, like saying it enough times would make it true. The newspaper photo still lay on Vincent's table, my son's arm around Marco Vero, both smiling. But there had to be an explanation. A mistake. Something. "Maybe Jason doesn't know who Vero really is," I said. "Maybe he's being manipulated." Vincent didn't answer. He just walked back to the metal cabinet and pulled out another folder. When he returned to the table, he pushed 3 documents toward me without a word. LLC formation papers. Legal documents filed with the state. I recognized the format. I'd filed similar paperwork when I'd contracted independently 30 years ago. But what stopped my breath was the signature at the bottom of each page. Jason Morgan. Not just his name, his signature. The distinctive J curve that swept up and then down, the way the tail of the G curled back on itself. I'd taught him that signature when he was 16, standing in my workshop, his hand gripping the pen, too tight, practicing the curve over and over until it matched mine. "I want a signature that looks professional, like yours, Dad," he'd said. No one could fake that specific flourish. Not perfectly. Not 3 times across 3 separate documents filed months apart. 3 LLCs, Vincent said quietly. 3 separate shell companies registered to Jason, all listing Morgan Capital Partners as the parent organization, all with Marco Vero's legitimate businesses as investors. I stared at the signatures until they blurred. "He knew," I said. "Jason knew exactly who he was working with." Vincent nodded. "The question isn't whether Jason's involved, it's how deep and what they're planning." He pulled out a laptop from under the kitchen counter, encrypted, password protected, the kind of equipment that screamed federal law enforcement. His fingers moved across the keyboard, pulling up records I had no legal right to see. "Eleanor Morgan Trust Fund," Vincent read from the screen. "Established in 1987, primary beneficiary Arthur Morgan. Secondary beneficiary upon death, Jason Morgan. Current value $5.8 million. I'd heard those numbers before. Eleanor and I had reviewed them every year, making sure everything was in order. But hearing them now in Vincent's cabin with Jason's signatures still burning in my peripheral vision, the numbers felt different, dangerous. "Normal liquidation requires your signature," Vincent continued. "Notarized, 30-day waiting period. You'd have time to reconsider, to consult lawyers to make sure you weren't being coerced." He scrolled down. "But there's an alternative pathway, right here. Clause 17, subsection B. In the event the primary beneficiary is deemed mentally incapable of managing their affairs, as certified by 2 licensed physicians, the secondary beneficiary may petition the court for emergency conservatorship with immediate effect." How do you weaponize love, turn a wife's careful protections into the very mechanism that destroys the person she died protecting? "Eleanor built every clause to protect me," I said. My voice sounded hollow. "She couldn't imagine the person I needed protection from would have the last name Morgan." Vincent closed the laptop. "Jason needs 2 doctors to declare you incompetent. He's already got 1 Dr. Harold Reeves who documented your cognitive decline over 3 appointments. He just needs 1 more physician to sign off, and he can petition for immediate control." "The February deadline," I said. "Chloe said her dad's deadline was end of February. That's 6 weeks, Vincent finished. "Which means they're almost ready. They just need to finish the medical paperwork and file with the court." I stood up, legs unsteady. The cabin felt too small, the walls pressing in. "I need to call people, my sister, my friends. Someone who knows me, who can testify that I'm not—" "Do it," Vincent said. He handed me the burner phone. "But Arthur, prepare yourself." I didn't understand what he meant until my sister answered. Arthur, my sister, Margaret, 63. A retired teacher who'd always been protective, answered my call with the careful tone people use when they think you're losing your mind. "Honey, are you okay? Where are you?" "I'm safe," I said. Margaret, I need to tell you something about Jason. Arthur Jason called last week. Her voice was gentle pitying. He's worried about you. He said you've been having memory problems getting confused about dates. He mentioned you wandered outside in your pajamas last month. I never... It's okay to ask for help, Margaret said. We all get older. There's no shame in it. I hung up, called Bill Townsend next. Bill Townsend, 67. My old friend from the engineering firm who'd known me for 40 years. If anyone would believe me, it would be Bill. Arthur Christ! Where have you been? Bill's voice was loud, worried. Jason's been trying to reach you for days. Said your house something about the roof. Bill, listen to me. Listen, Arthur. We're all getting up there in years. Jason mentioned you've been confused lately, maybe wandering around. Have you thought about seeing that doctor he recommended? The one who specializes in memory problems. I finished? Right. Look, there's no shame in it. My uncle had the same thing. Started small, forgetting appointments, getting lost, driving. I hung up, stared at the burner phone in my hand. Every family member, I said. Every friend. He's built the story that I'm losing my mind, and he did it before I even knew I was under attack. Vincent's expression was grim, which means he's been planning this a lot longer than 3 days. I thought about the timeline. 4 years ago, Jason asking about finances. 3 years ago, the invitation stopping. 2 years ago, the memory doctor. The careful, systematic isolation. How long? I asked. Vincent looked at the LLC documents on the table. The first shell company was registered 5 years ago, right after Jason met Chloe. 5 years. Half a decade of planning, of building a narrative, of turning my own son into a stranger who could close a door on his father in a blizzard and go back to his wine glass without a second thought. The February deadline. I said, what happens if we don't stop him by then? Vincent picked up one of the LLC documents, studied Jason's signature. Then you become legally incompetent, Jason gets control of the trust, and $5.8 million disappears into Vero's network. And you... He paused. You probably end up in a memory care facility where no one will believe a word you say. The question that terrified me most wasn't what Jason had already done. It was what else he'd already put in motion that I hadn't discovered yet. We returned to the house on Birchwood Road 2 days after it tried to kill me. Vincent drove the F-35. Slowly past, the place where I'd lived for 40 years. Snow still covered the collapsed roof like a white shroud. The bedroom window where I'd escaped gaped dark and empty. Police tape stretched across the front door. Condemn, the notice said. Unsafe for occupancy. We can't be seen here, Vincent said. Jason might be watching, or Vero's people. We get in, we find what we need, we get out. He pulled into the driveway, and we walked through the front door. The lock was broken, looters probably, or maybe Jason searching for Eleanor's document box. Either way, we were inside in seconds. The house was worse than I remembered. The bedroom ceiling had collapsed completely, bringing down half the roof with it. Snow had melted and refrozen, turning the carpets into sheets of ice. But Vincent wasn't looking at the damage. He was looking at the systems. Show me the furnace, he said. We went down to the basement. The stairs groaned under our weight, and I could see cracks in the foundation where the roof's collapse had stressed the whole structure. But the furnace stood intact in the corner, cold and silent. Vincent knelt beside it, examining the gas line, the pilot light assembly, the control valve. Then he stopped. Here, he said, pointing to a valve on the main gas line. This wasn't frozen, it was turned off, manually. Look at the position it's in, the closed setting, not broken mid-position. I looked. He was right. The valve sat in the fully closed position handle perpendicular to the pipe. If it had frozen or broken, it would be stuck somewhere in between. This was deliberate. 37 years as a mechanical engineer, I said. My voice sounded hollow in the cold basement. I knew what deliberate sabotage looked like, had testified about it in court twice for insurance cases. The phone line, Vincent said. Where does it enter the house? We went outside. The cable came in through the northeast wall where it had been mounted to the siding for decades. Vincent brushed snow away from the junction box and pulled out a flashlight. The cable was severed, not torn, not pulled loose by ice or wind. Cut. Clean cut, Vincent said, holding the severed end up to the light. Sharp blade, deliberate angle. This didn't snap from ice weight, someone severed it. Back inside, Vincent went to the bedroom circuit breaker panel. Even with the roof collapsed above it, the panel itself was intact, protected by the interior wall. He opened the panel door, examined the switches. "Is bedroom circuit," he said, pointing to one breaker. "Switch to off, not tripped switched. Someone opened this panel and flipped this breaker manually? 3 systems, heating phone power. All failed simultaneously because all 3 had been manually disabled before the storm." "This wasn't weather," I said. "This was murder." Vincent closed the breaker panel. "We need to find out who had access to this house before January 14th. Repair people, contractors, maintenance workers, someone who could walk in here with tools and a work order and not raise suspicion." We left the house and got back in the F350. Vincent pulled out his encrypted laptop and tethered it to his phone's hotspot. "What are you looking for?" I asked. "Maintenance records," Vincent said. "Heating companies, electricians, phone service, anyone who filed a work order for this address in the past 6 months." His fingers moved across the keyboard, pulling up databases I didn't have access to. Federal records probably left over from his FBI days. The kind of search that required badges and warrants unless you knew how to bypass both. After 10 minutes he stopped. "I got it," he said. He turned the laptop toward me. On screen was a scanned work order official letterhead from Concord Mechanical Services. Order number NH4471. Date December 23rd, 2022. 22 days before the blizzard. Client Morgan Capital Holdings, LLC. I stared at the screen. "That's one of Jason's companies, one of the shell corporations you showed me?" "Now read the work order," Vincent said. I read seasonal maintenance check at 447 Birchwood Road. Inspect heating system valve positioning. Leave valve accessible for winter adjustment, as per client specifications. Test phone line junction, exterior integrity. Verify bedroom electrical circuit isolation. Instructions written in careful technical language. Instructions that gave a technician permission to access every system that failed 3 weeks later. "They didn't break anything that day," Vincent said. "They just set it up so Jason or someone he hired could come back later and finish the job. Turn the valve, cut the cable, flip the breaker, make it look like winter maintenance gone wrong." December 23rd, Merry Christmas, stay warm. 22 days later, my roof collapsed while I froze in the dark. "I remember that day," I said. My voice sounded strange, distant. "December 23rd, Jason called me." Vincent looked at me. "He called to wish me Merry Christmas," I continued. "Asked if I needed anything, told me to stay warm this winter, said," my throat closed, said, "Promise me you'll stay safe, Dad. The winters are getting harder." Vincent's jaw tightened. "He signed your death warrant and wished you Merry Christmas in the same breath." I stared at the laptop screen, the date, the LLC name, the clinical instructions, hidden inside routine maintenance language, the words blurred and refocused. My son had ordered this work, filed the paperwork, paid the technician, set up the systems so that when the century blizzard hit 3 weeks later, I would die alone in the dark. And then he'd called me, wished me Merry Christmas, told me to stay warm. He'd planned my death and hidden it inside a Christmas blessing, I said. Vincent closed the laptop slowly. "The question is why? Why does he need Eleanor's trust badly enough to do this?" I looked at the house, my home for 4 decades now, a condemned wreck with police tape across the door. Inside were 40 years of memories buried under collapsed ceiling and frozen water. Eleanor's kitchen, where we'd had coffee every morning. The living room, where we'd watched Jason grow up. The bedroom where she died in my arms 3 years ago. All of it destroyed, all of it planned. "And Jason runs Morgan Capital Partners," I said. "Legitimate fund, you said. Vero's money laundered clean. Why would he risk everything to murder me for a trust fund he'd inherit eventually anyway?" Vincent started the engine. "Because something went wrong. Has to be. People don't commit murder unless they're desperate." "What kind of desperate?" Vincent pulled out of the driveway, heading back toward his cabin. "The kind where if you don't deliver by a deadline February, Chloe said someone worse than your father comes collecting." The question Vincent asked next changed everything. How badly does Jason need that 5.8 million? We were back in the cabin, the afternoon light fading through the pine trees. Vincent had pulled out another set of files from the locked cabinet, thicker than the others, marked with dates going back 3 years. "If Jason's desperate enough to commit murder," Vincent continued, "it's not just about inheritance, it's about debt, or obligation, or survival." He spread the files across the kitchen table. Bank records, transaction logs, wire, transfer documentation, the kind of financial forensics that take months to compile. "I've been tracking Vero's money for 15 years, Vincent said. Every shell company, every fake transaction, every dollar laundered through legitimate businesses. And about 3 years ago, a new pattern emerged. Money moving through Morgan Capital Partners. He pointed to the first document. Transaction 1, June 2020. $14 million routed through 5 shell companies, ultimately landing in a Cayman Islands account owned by one of Vero's front organizations. The trail goes through Morgan Capital Partners. 14 million. I tried to comprehend the number. Transaction 2. Vincent continued pulling out another file. March 2021. 11 million. Same pattern, different route. This time through real estate holdings in Florida. He pulled out a third file. Transaction 3. September 2022. 15 million. Venture capital fund in Delaware that doesn't actually invest in anything, just moves money from dirty sources to clean destinations. Vincent looked at me. Total $40 million. 3 transactions over 3 years, all with Jason's signature on the documentation. $40 million. I tried to imagine the Jason I knew, the boy who'd built birdhouses in my workshop, who'd cried when his goldfish died, signing documents that moved that kind of money for a crime boss. And your trust fund, Vincent said. 5.8 million. That's not a separate plan, it's the final piece. Transaction 4. The one that completes whatever cross-border deal Vero's been building for 3 years. February, I said. Chloe mentioned a February deadline. Right. Whatever Vero's selling real estate influence laundered capital, the deal closes in February, and he needs Jason to deliver one more package to complete it. Your trust. I looked at the files spread across the table. 3 years, $40 million, and now my life package as the final transaction. What happens to Jason after he delivers it? I asked. Vincent's silence was answer enough. He knows too much, Vincent said finally. That's Vero's pattern. Use people for as long as they're useful, then eliminate them before they become liabilities. The business partner, who Vero declared incompetent in 2007, dead 3 months later. The informant who gave us intel in 2008 found in a warehouse with 3 bullets. Vero doesn't leave loose ends. So Jason's dead either way, I said, whether he delivers the money or not. Probably, unless he's got leverage Vero needs, which I doubt. Jason's just a financial conduit. Once the money's delivered, he's disposable. Vincent pulled out another file, this one older. The pages yellowed at the edges. Court transcripts from 2007 Massachusetts Superior Court. Dr. Harold Reeves. Vincent read from the file. 57, Manchester, New Hampshire. Psychiatrist. Expert witness in a 2007 case involving one of Vero's business partners. He handed me the transcript. I read the highlighted sections. Dr. Reeves testified that the business partner, a man named Gerald Hoffman, was suffering from severe cognitive decline, memory loss, confusion, inability to manage financial affairs. The court ruled Hoffman incompetent. His business assets were transferred to a conservator who happened to be connected to Vero's network. 3 months later, Gerald Hoffman died. The official cause was suicide. Dr. Harold Reeves, I said slowly. Manchester, New Hampshire. You know him, Vincent said. It wasn't a question. Jason mentioned him 4 times in the past 6 months. I tried to remember the exact conversations. First time was July. Jason called and said I should get a cognitive checkup. Just routine dad. Everyone over 60 should get baseline testing. He recommended Dr. Reeves. Vincent pulled out a notepad. When was the second time? September. Jason mentioned I'd seemed confused during our last phone call, which I hadn't been. Said Dr. Reeves specialized in early detection. Better to catch these things early, right, Dad? The third. November. Jason asked if I'd scheduled the appointment yet. Said he was worried, that I'd repeated myself twice during our Thanksgiving phone call. How do you mention the same doctor 4 times in 6 months without the father you're planning to destroy noticing the pattern? And the 4th time, Vincent asked. 2 weeks ago, early January. Jason said he'd already scheduled an appointment for me with Dr. Reeves, January 28th. Just a favor to me, Dad, so I can rest assured you're healthy. Vincent wrote down the dates. 4 documented instances of Jason expressing concern about your mental state to family members with specific mention of a medical professional. That's not concern, that's building a case. He pulled out another page from the 2007 file. Reeves's pattern is consistent. First, the family member, in this case, Jason, expresses concern to multiple people over several months. 4 mentions minimum, creates a narrative of worried son trying to help aging father. Then, I asked. And then the evaluation. One appointment where Dr. Reeves documents cognitive decline, memory lapses, confusion. All subjective, all based on his expert opinion. And then the court petition, emergency conservatorship, based on two physicians' recommendations, Dr. Reeves plus the first doctor, the one who did your initial cognitive testing. Whole process takes 30 days if filed correctly. Vincent closed the 2007 file. Reeves's pattern 4 documented concerns from Family 1 evaluation court petition within 30 days. Jason's already given him 4 mentions. You know what comes next. I looked at the calendar on Vincent's wall. January 17th. February deadline was 6 weeks away. The appointment, I said. January 28th. That's the evaluation. If I go to that appointment, Dr. Reeves documents whatever Jason needs him to document, then they file the petition. And by February price, Vincent said, Jason has legal control of your trust, the money gets delivered to Vero, and you end up in a memory care facility where no one believes a word you say. Somewhere in Vero's network, a timeline was counting down. My life, my freedom, and Jason's survival, all hanging on the same deadline, all converging toward the same date in February. We have 6 weeks, I said. Vincent looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd only seen once before the night he'd pulled me from the snowdrift. 6 weeks to prove your son tried to kill you, he said, and to save him from the man who's going to kill him next. The scanner crackled to life. At 9:47 p.m., a sound Vincent hadn't heard in 15 years. We'd been sitting in silence, the weight of 6 weeks pressing down on us. 6 weeks to prove my son had tried to kill me. 6 weeks to save him from the man who would eliminate him next. The timeline felt impossible. Then the scanner on Vincent's shelf, the one I'd assumed was just decoration from his old life, burst into static. Vincent went rigid. His hand shot out, turning up the volume. The static resolved into a voice, male distorted by encryption or interference, speaking in careful, clipped phrases. The subject alive, Plan 1 failed, doctor appointment 2nd week February. Proceed Plan B. Silence. Then a response, different voice, heavier accent. Confirmed. Plan B operational. Timeline unchanged. The transmission ended. Static returned. Vincent stared at the scanner like it had grown teeth. At that frequency, he said. His voice was tight controlled. Jesus Christ, that's Varo's network, same encryption pattern from 15 years ago. I'd know that signal anywhere. I looked at the silent scanner. Plan 1 failed. That's me. I'm Plan 1. The blizzard, the sabotage. They're calling it Plan 1. Vincent stood and walked to the locked drawer beneath the scanner shelf. He pulled out a key I'd never seen him use. Inside the drawer, a Glock 19 cleaned and oiled magazine beside it, waiting. Plan B, I said. They have a contingency for my survival, as if my death was just one option on a checklist. Vincent checked the weapon with practiced efficiency. Magazine out chamber, clear sight, alignment, trigger pull. 15 years of rust falling away in seconds. Doctor appointment 2nd week February, he said. That's Dr. Reeves. They're moving to the incapacity plan probably faster than originally scheduled because you survived. I did the math. Today was January 17th. 2nd week of February meant 7 to 10 days away. We don't have 6 weeks, I said. We have 1, maybe 2. Vincent set the Glock on the table between us. The first time in 15 years he'd taken it from that drawer. The first time he'd admitted he might need to become Vincent Caldwell, federal agent again. We need to talk strategy, he said. We didn't sleep that night. Vincent pulled out his old case files, the surveillance photos, the transaction records. By morning, the kitchen table looked like a federal war room. Maps, documents, timelines spreading across every surface. Current situation. Vincent said at 8 a.m., coffee in hand. We have fragments. Sabotage order from December 23rd. Financial records showing Jason's money laundering. Overheard phone calls. Scanner intercept. But none of it's enough for federal prosecution. Why not? I asked. Because we obtained most of it illegally. I'm supposed to be dead. I don't have federal authority anymore. The maintenance order is suspicious, but not proof of murder attempt. The financial records show transactions, but don't prove criminal intent. And the phone calls inadmissible without a warrant. So we run disappear like you did. Vincent shook his head. Running doesn't solve this. Vero's patient. He'll wait months, years if necessary. And Jason's still trapped either way. No, we go on offense. Make them reveal themselves. He pulled out a legal pad and started writing. Problem 1, we need admissible evidence. Confession preferably on recording. Problem 2, Vero still has connections in the local DA's office from 2007. If we go to Concord Police, word reaches Varo within hours. Then who do we go to? FBI Boston, federal jurisdiction outside Vero's local network. But we need something concrete to bring them, something they can't ignore. Vincent drew a timeline on the legal pad. 2 stages. Stage 1, you meet Jason, wear a wire, get him talking. We need him to admit something, the sabotage, the trust fund seizure, his connection to Varo, anything incriminating. And if he doesn't talk, then we move to stage 2 anyway. We take everything, recordings, documents, the whole network, straight to FBI Boston, bypass local entirely. Won't be enough to prosecute, but it'll be enough to open an investigation. Get you into protective custody before the Dr. Reeves appointment. I looked at Vincent's Glock still sitting on the table. And if Varo figures out what we're doing before we get to the FBI, then stage 2 becomes stage 1 and we run like hell to Boston before they can stop us. It wasn't a good plan. It was barely a plan at all, but it was action, the first offensive move we'd made since I'd stumbled into that snowdrift. How do I get Jason to meet me? I asked. He thinks I'm dead in a ditch somewhere. If I call him alive, he'll know something's wrong. Vincent smiled, a thin, cold expression. You play into his narrative. Call him confused, disoriented, talking about memory problems and not knowing where you've been. Feed him exactly what he wants to hear. The senile old man who wandered off and can't remember what happened. And he'll meet me. He'll have to. Right now you're a loose end alive, but potentially discredited by your own confusion. He needs to assess the threat, figure out what you remember, what you might tell people. He'll meet you to evaluate the situation. Vincent drew a circle on the timeline. Public place, somewhere with witnesses but enough privacy for conversation. Coffee shop maybe, someplace he'll feel safe talking. He looked up at me. You understand what this means. You're walking into a meeting with the man who tried to kill you, who's working with an organization that's killed dozens of people. If he suspects you're recording... I know, I said. Vincent drew the final line on his timeline. January 18th today. Dr. Reeves' appointment, 2nd week, February 7 to 10 days away. We have 1 week, maybe 2, to get Jason on record before they move, he said. After that, you're either declared incompetent or you're dead. No third option. I looked at the timeline, the maps, the evidence spread across the table. Somewhere out there, my son was waking up in his mansion, having coffee with the wife whose father wanted me dead, planning the next steps in a conspiracy that would end with my incapacity or my murder. The hunt had reversed. I was no longer the prey waiting to be eliminated. I was the bait walking into the trap. My hands shook as I dialed Jason's number, not from fear but from the recording device Vincent had taped to my ribs. The wire was smaller than I'd expected, barely larger than a thumb drive pressed against my sternum with medical tape. Vincent had tested it 3 times, played back my voice, adjusted the gain. New Hampshire was a one-party consent state, he'd said. As long as I knew I was recording, the audio was legally admissible. I pressed call. Jason answered on the 2nd ring. Dad, is that you? I let my voice shake, not difficult given the circumstances. Jason, I found some of your mother's papers, Eleanor's papers, and I can't remember what they mean. I'm scared, son. I'm scared I'm losing it. Silence on the other end, then, where are you? Route 93 Diner, the one we used to go to. I don't know how I got here. I needed to see you. Let's stay there, Jason said. I'm coming. Don't go anywhere, Dad. I'll be there in 45 minutes. He arrived in 42. I sat in the corner booth. Vincent had picked good sight lines to the parking lot, enough privacy for conversation, public enough that Jason would feel safe. Through the window, I watched my son's Mercedes pull into the lot. Watched him check his reflection in the rearview mirror, straighten his tie, compose his face into the expression of a concerned son. Then he walked in, and when he saw me, his smile looked genuine. Dad. He slid into the booth across from me, reached across the table to squeeze my hand. I've been worried sick. Where have you been? The device under my shirt recorded everything. I don't know, I said. Let confusion fill my voice. After the roof, after that night, everything's foggy. I remember the cold, and then gaps. Just gaps. Jason's hand on mine felt warm, protective, the same hand that had signed the order to sabotage my heating system 3 weeks before Christmas. It's okay, he said. That's what I've been worried about, the memory problems. Dad, you need to see someone. a professional. I don't need a doctor, I said, pulling my hand back. I just need to understand Eleanor's papers, the trust documents. Why are there so many accounts? Jason's expression shifted concern to something harder to read. Dad, we've talked about this. The trust is complicated. That's why you have me to help manage things. But I should understand it. I'm the engineer. I understand complicated things. You do. You did. Jason's voice was gentle, almost pitying. But Dad, people change. Minds change. That's why I keep mentioning Dr. Reeves just one session so I can rest assured you're staying healthy. So, I know you're safe. Fifth mention. The recording device captured it perfectly. I don't want a psychiatrist, I said. It's not about what you want. Jason leaned forward, and for just a moment, I saw something in his eyes that wasn't concern. It's about what's best for you, and I'm the only one left who can make that decision. He touched my hand again, said, I only want what's best for you, Dad. And the device in my pocket recorded every manipulative word. Jason left 20 minutes later, promising to call tomorrow to schedule the appointment with Dr. Reeves to make sure I was taken care of. I watched his Mercedes pull out of the parking lot. Vincent appeared from the diner's back booth 30 seconds later. You got it, I asked. He held up his phone showing the waveform of the recording. Every word. Fifth mention of Dr. Reeves' direct statement about taking control of your decisions. It's not enough to prosecute, but it's a start. What now? Now we track him. Vincent pulled out a different phone, a burner like the one he'd given me. He dialed a number from memory. The call connected. Vincent spoke in code. Mercer, it's Caldwell. Authorization code 77 Delta. Life-threatening situation need. Verbal G. PS approval. A pause. Then a voice through the speaker shocked disbelieving. Vincent Jesus Christ, you're alive. Agent Ray Mercer, 61, FBI Boston. The only person who'd known Vincent Caldwell had faked his death 15 years ago and was still breathing. That's 60 seconds approved under emergency provision. 18 U.S. C. 25. 18-7. Mercer said, clock starts now, but Vincent, we need to talk. Later, Vincent said. He was already moving toward Jason's Mercedes, still idling at the parking lot exit, waiting for traffic. 45 seconds. I watched Vincent drop to his knees beside Jason's rear bumper, reach up under the wheel well, and attach something magnetic with a soft click. He rolled away, stood up, brushed snow off his knees. At 30 seconds to spare, he said. We're legal. FBI knows I'm alive. Clock's ticking. Jason's Mercedes pulled onto Route 93 heading south. Vincent's phone showed a blinking red dot moving along a map. Where's he going? I asked. And let's find out. We followed at a distance Vincent's F35, staying 3 cars back. The GPS made it easy. We didn't need to keep visual contact, just track the dot on the screen. At 6 p.m., Jason's Mercedes turned into an old industrial district east of Concord. The dot stopped moving. Vincent pulled over 2 blocks away and grabbed binoculars from under his seat. That's that building, he said, staring through the lenses. I know that building. That house. We had surveillance here in 2007. Vero used it for pickups handoffs meetings with his network. 15 years, same building, same operation. Vero had never needed to hide because he'd never stopped controlling Concord from the shadows. Through the binoculars, I watched Jason Park check his surroundings and walk to a side door. He disappeared inside. 11 minutes later, he emerged carrying a thick brown envelope. His face was tense, movements quick. He got back in his Mercedes and sat there for a moment, staring at the envelope in his lap. Then he drove away. He's not going home, Vincent said, watching the GPS. Look at the route. The red dot moved west away from Concord Heights, away from Jason's mansion. Where's he going? Vincent zoomed out on the map. The dot kept moving, heading toward another part of town entirely. There's more, Vincent said quietly. He's not done tonight. I stared at the screen. Whatever Jason was doing required 2 stops in one evening, and the second location would reveal just how deep into Vero's world my son had fallen. The GPS alert came at 7:15. The next evening, Jason was moving again. Vincent and I had spent the day at his cabin, reviewing the wire recording from the diner, cataloging evidence, building our case. The device under my shirt had captured Jason's 5th mention of Dr. Reeves, his statement about being the only one left to make decisions about my care. Not enough for a warrant, Vincent said, but enough to establish pattern. Then the phone buzzed. The red dot on the screen started moving. "He's not going home," Vincent said, watching the GPS. "And he's not going east to the old warehouse." I looked at the map. The dot was moving west, away from Concord Center toward the outskirts. "Yeah, you know this area?" I asked. Vincent shook his head. "We didn't have surveillance this far west in 2007. If Varro's using this location, it means he's expanded since I went underground. New territory, new operations." We got in the F-350 and followed at a distance. Vincent kept 3 cars between us and Jason's Mercedes, but the GPS made visual contact unnecessary. We could hang back, stay invisible, and still track every turn. 20 minutes later, Jason's car turned into an abandoned warehouse district on the western edge of town. Buildings with broken windows and peeling paint parking lots full of potholes and weeds. The kind of place where legitimate business had died decades ago and other kinds of business had moved in to fill the void. Vincent cut the headlights half a mile back. The F-35 rolled forward on running lights alone, slow and quiet. 3 cars already there, Vincent said, pointing to the warehouse ahead. Jason's Mercedes pulled up beside them. "This isn't a pickup, this is a meeting." We parked 200 yards away, tucked behind a collapsed loading dock that provided cover. Vincent killed the engine. Through the broken warehouse windows, I could see light flickering, flashlights maybe, or battery-powered lanterns. I was following my own son through the darkness, watching him drive to a meeting with the man who'd ordered my death, and some part of me still wanted to believe he was being coerced. "Hey, stay low," Vincent said. He reached under the driver's seat and pulled out a hard black case I hadn't seen before. Inside, binoculars, but not the normal kind. These looked military, heavy, rubberized, with digital displays on the eyepieces. "Thermal imaging," Vincent said. "Old detective kit from my FBI days. Tracks heat signatures through walls' darkness fog. If there are people in that warehouse, we'll see them." He lifted the binoculars to his eyes and adjusted the focus. The warehouse's broken windows glowed green in the thermal display. 3 people, he said. "Your son, a woman in what looks like an evening dress, long, formal, and a 3rd person. Bigger, male, I think." He adjusted the focus again, tracking the figures as they moved inside. "The big one just turned toward a window," Vincent said. His voice had gone tight. Left hand gesturing. "I can see—" He stopped. "What?" I asked. "Is Jesus, Arthur. I can see the scar." He handed me the binoculars. I lifted them to my eyes, and the world turned into shades of green and white heat, signatures against cold backgrounds. 3 figures inside the warehouse. Jason clearly recognizable by his height and build. A woman beside him, her dress showing as darker fabric against her body's warmth. And a 3rd figure, broad-shouldered, thick-armed head, turning as he gestured with his left hand. The hand was raised, fingers spread. Even through the thermal imaging's green distortion, I knew it instantly. That hand. I'd studied it in photographs for 2 weeks. In person, it was worse somehow, real present 300 yards away. The same mark I'd seen in Vincent's surveillance photos. The same scar from the newspaper clipping showing Jason at the charity event. Marco Varro, in person, 300 yards away, standing in a warehouse with my son. "And that's him," I said. My voice sounded hollow. "That's Marco Varro, and my son is standing 3 feet away like they're old friends." Vincent took the binoculars back and watched for a long moment. Jason was talking, gesturing with his hands. Varro listened, nodded, then said something that made Jason's posture stiffen. The woman moved closer to Jason, her hand touching his arm. The gesture looked intimate. "Familiar?" "The woman," I said. "Is that—" "Oh, can't tell from thermal," Vincent said. "But based on the dress, the height, the way she's standing next to Jason, I'd say it's Chloe. Jason's wife, Marco Varro's daughter, standing in an abandoned warehouse with both of them in the middle of the night while they planned whatever came next." Vincent adjusted the thermal focus, trying to get a clearer view of the woman's face. The green glow sharpened slightly, showing the outline of her features. Then Vincent went very still. "That's what I asked." "Her face," he said. His voice had gone strange, flat. "The bone structure, the proportions." He lowered the binoculars and turned to look at me. His hands were shaking. "Arthur, I need to show you something. An old surveillance photo from 2006, from before you ever met Chloe, before Jason met her." "Why?" "Because I think I've seen her before." Vincent pulled out his phone, started scrolling through old files. "Not as Chloe Varro, Jason's wife, not as an adult, but as a girl, 18 years old, at one of Varro's private parties." He found the image he was looking for, turned the phone toward me. The photo was grainy, taken from long-distance surveillance quality. It showed a large house, people on a patio, glasses of wine, and in the center, a young woman with dark hair standing beside a broad-shouldered man whose left hand rested on her shoulder. The same scar from thumb to wrist. And the girl's face, younger, unlined, but with bone structure, I had seen 100 times at family dinners. That's from 2006, Vincent said. 18 years ago. The girl was 18 then, which would make her 36 now, the exact age Chloe claims to be. He looked back through the thermal binoculars at the warehouse, at the woman standing beside Jason, her hand on his arm. Arthur, Vincent said quietly, I don't think Chloe met Jason by accident. I think she was planted. The woman standing beside my son in that warehouse wasn't just Chloe Vero, his wife of 6 years. She was Marco Vero's daughter, had been for 36 years. Had grown up in that world, learned that business, become part of that network. And then she'd walked into Jason's life at exactly the right moment and made him fall in love. Vincent's hands shook as he pulled the yellowed photograph from his file, a private party 2006 faces I'd never wanted to recognize. The image was grainy, shot from distance through a long lens, a large house, people on a patio, with wine glasses catching sunset light. And in the center, a young woman with dark hair, standing beside a broad-shouldered man, whose left hand rested on her shoulder. The mark was visible even in that grainy yellowed image, the same one I'd first seen on Vincent's shelf the night he pulled me from the snow. This was taken 18 years ago, Vincent said. Private party at one of Vero's properties. We had surveillance set up across the street. The girl, she was 18 then, which would make her 36 now. I looked through the thermal binoculars again at the woman in the warehouse. She'd moved closer to the window, and the green glow of her heat signature showed her profile more clearly. The bone structure, the proportions of her face. That could be Chloe, I said. My voice sounded strange. Vincent, that could be. Every instinct screamed to throw open that door across 300 yards and drag my son away from the man who'd ordered my death. Consequences be damned. My hand reached for the door handle. Vincent's arm shot across the center console and slammed down on the lock button. All 4 doors engaged with a sharp metallic click that echoed through the cab. Don't, get out, this car. His voice had gone cold, absolutely flat, the tone of a federal agent giving a direct order. That's my son in there, I said. I'm not hiding 300 yards away while he stands next to... Look at his left hand. Vincent grabbed the binoculars and forced them back to my eyes. That's Marco Vero, the man who killed my FBI teammate in 2007 with 3 bullets to the chest. The man who's eliminated 17 people that we know of over 15 years. He has a list, Arthur. Your son is on it. I stared through the thermal imaging. Vero's hand was gesturing, making a point. Jason was listening, nodding. As Jason's a liability, Vincent continued. He knows too much, he's handled too much money, he's seen too much of the operation. The pattern is always the same: use them until delivery is complete, then eliminate them before they can become informants or weak links. Then we save him, I said. We get him out, He's 3 feet from the man planning his murder, and he's smiling. Vincent's voice was hard. Jason knows exactly who he's standing next to. He chose this. And if we blow our position now, if Vero sees us, recognizes me, figures out we're gathering evidence, they'll move up the timeline. Jason dies faster, you die faster, and I disappear for real this time. My hand stayed on the door handle, but I didn't pull it. Vincent was right. Charging in now would accomplish nothing except getting us all killed. I lowered my hand. Good, Vincent said quietly. He unlocked the doors, but kept his eyes on me. Now, let's figure out who that woman really is. He positioned the 2006 photograph beside the thermal binocular eyepiece, creating a side-by-side comparison. Old image grainy and yellowed, new image green and thermal. Look at the eyes, Vincent said. The distance between them, the angle. Now, look at the jawline, the way it tapers, the cheekbones. I looked back and forth. 18-year-old girl, 36-year-old woman. The same face, just older. That's not coincidence, Vincent said. That's genetics. The girl in this 2006 photo is the woman standing next to your son right now. Before I tell you who that woman really was, are you still with me right now? Drop your guess in one quick sentence. Do you think Chloe knew she was Vero's daughter all along, or was she deceived too? A quick note, what follows includes recreated details for storytelling impact. The message is what I hope stays with you. Chloe, I said. The word came out hollow. That's Chloe, but she's She's Jason's wife. She's Marco Vero's daughter, Vincent said. Placed. She didn't meet Jason by accident at that conference 6 years ago. She was sent, recruited him. The entire relationship, the courtship, the engagement, the wedding. It wasn't romance. It was operational. I thought about the wedding, 6 years ago. I'd walk Chloe down the aisle because her father couldn't make it from Boston. She'd cried when I gave her away to Jason, told me I was the father she'd always wanted. All of it lies. And Jason didn't fall for the wrong person, I said slowly. He was hunted. Targeted, Vincent corrected. Vero probably identified him years before they ever met. Successful business, clean record, access to family money. Then he sent his daughter in to make contact, build trust, create the relationship. By the time Jason realized what he was involved in, if he ever realized he was already married to Vero's daughter, already handling Vero's money, already too deep to walk away. 4 years of marriage, 4 Christmases, 4 anniversaries. All of it, every moment, calculated, planned, operational. She knows everything, I said. Bank accounts, daily routines, my relationship with Jason, Eleanor's trust structure. She's been reporting to Vero the entire time. Vincent agreed. That's why the sabotage plan was so precise. They knew your house layout, your systems, your patterns. Chloe gathered the intelligence, Jason provided access, Vero executed the plan. Through the binoculars, I watched Chloe's hand rest on Jason's arm, the same gesture I'd seen 1,000 times at family dinners, at Thanksgiving, at Christmas. Every time I'd thought it was affection, love, the natural touch of a wife who cared about her husband. Now I knew better. It was control. If she's been with him for 6 years, Vincent said quietly, she knows everything, his fears, his weaknesses, his bank passwords, his relationship with you. She's been inside the operation from day one, gathering data, reporting back, helping Vero refine the strategy. I thought about the Christmas call, Jason wishing me Merry Christmas on the same day he'd filed the sabotage order. Had Chloe been standing there beside him, listening, smiling? Probably. My son didn't just partner with a crime boss, I said. My voice sounded dead. He married into the organization, and his wife has been gathering intelligence on our family since the day they met. Vincent nodded slowly. Which means she knows we're here. She knows we're watching. And if Jason told her about your call yesterday about meeting you at the diner, she knows I'm alive, I finished. And if she knows, Vero knows. Vincent started the engine. Which means Plan B just became Plan C, and we're running out of alphabet. We drove 20 minutes in absolute silence, the kind that follows revelations too large for immediate words. Chloe knew I was alive, which meant Vero knew, which meant the timeline I'd thought we had 1 week, maybe 2, had just collapsed into days, maybe hours. Vincent kept his eyes on the dark road hand steady on the wheel. The F-350's headlights cut through falling snow, and I watched the white flakes disappear into darkness behind us. Finally, Vincent spoke. Vero needed a clean vehicle, he said. His voice was calm, analytical, the tone of someone breaking down a case file. Someone respectable, established, with access to family money. He couldn't just approach Jason directly. That would raise suspicions, leave trails. So, he placed Chloe. 6 years ago, I said. Probably longer. The placement takes time. Research the target, create the meet-cute scenario, build the relationship naturally. Seduction, courtship, marriage, gradual compromise, classic recruitment strategy. I thought about Jason and Chloe's wedding, how natural it had all seemed, how in love they had looked. You think Jason knows, I asked, that Chloe is Vero's daughter? Vincent was quiet for a moment. Doesn't matter anymore. He's $40 million deep in money laundering. Even if he learned the truth last week, even if Chloe confessed everything yesterday, he can't walk away. He's too compromised, too exposed. Vero owns him. And after he delivers Eleanor's trust, he's a liability who knows too much. Bank accounts, shell companies, transaction patterns, Vero's entire financial network. Vincent's jaw tightened. The pattern is always the same. Use them, then eliminate them. Should we try to save him, extract Jason before Vero eliminates him? Or was my son already too stained by $40 million in blood money to deserve salvation? Does Jason know, I asked, that Vero's planning to kill him? Vincent glanced at me. I think he knows something. Maybe not the specifics, maybe not the timeline, But cornered men develop instincts. They feel the walls closing in. And that's Jason's most dangerous version right now, cornered, desperate, aware that the endgame is coming. Is the dangerous how unpredictable? He might run. He might turn on Vero. He might accelerate the plan, try to seize your trust faster, deliver it sooner, buy himself more time. Vincent pulled into the long driveway leading to his cabin. Or he might try to eliminate you himself before Vero can, cut out the middleman, prove his value. The cabin appeared through the trees, dark and isolated. "We need leverage," Vincent said. "Something that gives us control of the situation before Jason makes a move we can't counter." "What kind of leverage?" Vincent killed the engine and looked at me. "The kind that puts them on record. Audio, video, something that captures the conspiracy in their own words." The wire recording from the diner wasn't enough. Fifth mention of a doctor, vague statements about taking control. It establishes pattern, but doesn't prove conspiracy to commit fraud or murder. Vincent opened his door. "We need them talking about the sabotage, the trust fund seizure, the incapacity plan, ideally with both Jason and Vero in the same conversation." "Now how do we get that?" Vincent smiled, a thin, cold expression. "We give them bait they can't resist." The next morning, Vincent led me to a small workshop behind the cabin. I hadn't noticed it before, just a shed really, with workbenches and tools and old equipment covered in dust. The workshop smelled like Eleanor's garage, sawdust and metal, and possibility the scent of every Saturday I'd taught Jason to build things that lasted instead of schemes that destroyed. Vincent pulled an old weathered metal box from a shelf, the kind that might have held documents once with a simple latch and hinges that creaked. "And this, as he said, is going to be our Trojan horse." He opened his FBI kit and pulled out components I didn't recognize. Tiny circuit boards, a miniature microphone no bigger than a shirt button, a battery pack, thin wires. "Transmitter range 2 miles, Vincent said, working with a soldering iron. "Battery life 72 hours. It'll capture everything said within 15 feet of this box. High-quality audio. Admissible in court." "Is this legal?" I asked. "You're handing it over as a consenting party. New Hampshire is one-party consent for recording. Ray Mercer at FBI Boston is already notified and approved the operation. We're clean." Vincent installed the transmitter inside the box's false bottom, then covered it with yellowed documents, old trust papers from Eleanor's estate, photocopies of account statements, financial records that looked important but revealed nothing classified. "The plan," Vincent said, "is simple. You call Jason," voice shaking, confused. "Son, I found this box of Mom's papers in the attic. Something about the fund. I don't understand what it means." "He'll come. He has to if there are documents he doesn't know about, documents that might complicate his plans. He needs to see them. And when he takes the box, he'll take it straight to Vero. They'll open it, find Eleanor's trust documents, and they'll talk. Plans, timelines, the whole conspiracy. And we'll record every word from 2 miles away." Vincent tested the transmitter, checked the battery level, sealed the false bottom so it looked untouched. "Once you hand this to Jason," he said, "everything changes. He'll take it to Vero, they'll examine the documents, and they'll discuss what comes next. How to use the information, how to accelerate the incapacity plan, how to get control of the trust." Vincent looked up at me. "After that recording exists, there's no going back." He closed the metal box with a soft click. The transmitter was invisible, perfectly hidden, just an old box full of Eleanor's papers that a confused widower had found in his dead wife's attic. "You ready to destroy your son?" Vincent asked. I took the box, felt its weight in my hands. Inside was a listening device that would record every word Jason said, every plan he made with Vero, every detail of the conspiracy that would either save my life or end Jason's freedom forever. The metal was cold against my palms, heavier than it should be. "I'm ready," I said, but I wasn't sure if I was lying. My finger hovered over Jason's contact for 30 seconds before I finally pressed call. The transmitter box sat on Vincent's kitchen table, innocuous and deadly. Inside, Eleanor's old trust documents, photocopied and yellowed, and beneath them, hidden in the false bottom, a device that would record every word spoken within 15 feet. I'd rehearsed the script with Vincent a dozen times, voice trembling, confused, scared, the senile old man who'd found something he couldn't understand and needed his son's help. The phone rang 3 times. "Dad," Jason's voice was cautious. "Is everything okay? Son, I let my voice shake, not difficult given what I was about to do. I found this metal box in the basement, behind the water heater, Mom's handwriting on some papers inside. Something about the fund, about accounts I don't remember. I can't remember what it means, and I'm scared I'm losing my mind. Silence on the other end, then, where are you? Public library, the parking lot. I didn't want to go home. The house feels wrong since the roof. Stay there, Jason said. I'm coming. Don't go anywhere, Dad. I'll be there in an hour. He arrived in 50 minutes. I sat in Vincent's F-35. Oh, Vincent had dropped me off and driven away, watching from 300 yards with binoculars clutching the metal box, like it was the only thing keeping me anchored. Jason's Mercedes pulled up beside me. He got out, walked around to my passenger window. When I rolled it down, his expression was perfectly composed concern. Hey, Dad. He opened my door. You okay? You sounded really worried on the phone. I found this, I said, holding up the box. In the basement, Mom's papers. I think they're about the trust, but I can't remember. Did she tell me about this? Did I forget? Jason took the box from my hands. His fingers were steady, professional, but his eyes, for just a moment, I saw them light up. Recognition, excitement. Something he'd been searching for. Don't worry, Dad, he said. His voice was gentle, patient. You're not losing anything. Sometimes old documents are just confusing. Legal language, trust terminology, it's not designed for normal people to understand. Let me take a look. I'll figure it out for you. Jason touched my shoulder. I'll take care of everything, Dad. The same words he'd said when Eleanor died, when I'd trusted him with her estate, when I'd believed he would protect what she'd built. You should go home and rest, Jason said, stepping back with the box under his arm. I'll review these papers tonight, make sure everything's in order. If there's anything important, I'll call you tomorrow and explain it in simple terms. Okay, I said. Jason smiled, got back in his Mercedes, placed the box carefully in his passenger's seat, and drove away. The transmitter was mobile now. Wherever Jason went, whatever he said, we would hear it. Vincent picked me up 2 minutes later. We drove back to the cabin in silence. 6 hours passed. We sat in Vincent's kitchen, the receiver on the table between us. It looked like an old radio, but the display showed signal strength battery level audio input. The transmitter was still active, still recording. At 8 p.m., the receiver crackled to life. Static, movement, then voices. Jason's voice came through first. I got the box. Another voice responded deeper, older with an edge of authority I recognized from surveillance recordings. Marco Varro. Good, Varro said. You examined the contents. Old trust documents, account statements from the 90s. Nothing we didn't already know about, but he delivered it himself. Didn't suspect anything. His confusion is real. Now the performance at the diner was one thing, but this, he's genuinely losing it. Excellent. Papers rustling through the speaker. Reeves' appointment is confirmed, Thursday, February 9th. And the timeline after that, after the incapacity file is submitted to the court, we move operations in 48 hours. Transfer completes accounts, close everything finalizes. Jason's voice hesitated. And then, long silence, the kind that carries weight. Then Marco spoke, his voice calm and businesslike. Then everything is simplified. Simplified. One word spoken like a corporate efficiency note. I knew exactly what it meant. The line went dead. Vincent and I sat in the darkness, the receiver silent between us. Play it back, I said. Vincent rewound the recording. We listened again in silence. And then, Jason's voice not curious, afraid. Then everything is simplified. Vincent stopped the playback. Neither of us spoke for a long moment. February 9th plus 48 hours, I said finally. February 11th. That's the date, Vincent confirmed. February 9th plus 48 hours, I calculated. February 11th. That's Jason's execution date, Vincent said quietly. And he knows it, Arthur. You heard his voice when he asked the question, the hesitation. The way he phrased it, and then, like he already knew the answer, but needed to hear it confirmed. I replayed the moment in my mind, Jason's voice, and then, not curious, not casual, afraid. He knows Varro's going to kill him, I said. And he's doing it anyway, Vincent finished. We sat there in the cabin's darkness, the implications settling over us like snow. Oh, what's why? I asked. If Jason knows he's marked for elimination, the moment the money transfers, why is he still going through with it? Vincent was quiet for a long time. 3 possibilities, he said finally. 1, he thinks he can outrun it. transfer the money, disappear before Vero can move. 2, he has leverage we don't know about, something that keeps him valuable alive. Or 3, Vincent looked at me. 3, he's accepted it. He knows he's dead. Either way, fail to deliver, Vero kills him. Succeed in delivery, Vero kills him. So he's going through the motions because there's no escape, and at least this way, he gets to see it through. The question haunted me through that sleepless night, replaying in my mind, while Vincent dozed in his chair and I stared at the cabin's dark ceiling. If Jason knew he was marked for death, why was he still delivering the money that would trigger his own elimination? What kept my son walking toward his execution with his eyes wide open? Vincent drew a red circle on the calendar around Thursday, February 9th, then counted backward to today, 19 days. I hadn't slept, couldn't. The question kept circling through my mind, why was Jason walking toward his own execution? Vincent had dozed in his chair for maybe 3 hours, then woken at dawn and started organizing. Now, morning light cut through the cabin windows as he laid out everything we had. 19 days, he said, tapping the calendar. February 9th, Dr. Reeves signs the incapacity papers. 48 hours later, February 11th, Vero moves. Jason's execution, your institutionalization, trust fund liquidation, all in one sweep. He spread files across the kitchen table, audio recordings, documents, photographs. Diner wire recording, Jason's 5th mention of the Dr. Reeves' statement about taking control of your decisions. Transmitter intercepts Jason reporting to Vero, confirming the box hand overhearing his own elimination coded as simplified. HVAC sabotage order from December 23rd. LLC formation, documents with Jason's signature. The 2006 surveillance photo proving Chloe is Vero's daughter. Vincent looked at me. This is federal RICO territory. Money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, elder abuse. We have enough. Then we go to the FBI, I said. Today. Vincent sat down slowly. There's a problem. What problem? We have evidence. We have recordings. I'm legally dead. The words hung in the air. My death certificate was filed in 2008. Vincent continued. Social Security terminated. Bank accounts closed. Vincent Caldwell ceased to exist 15 years ago. How does a dead man walk into FBI Boston and file a report? How does a ghost testify in federal court? 19 days, 456 hours until Jason's signed death warrant became executable, and we were counting every single one. There has to be a way, I said. There is. One person knows I'm alive. Ray Mercer. He was my partner before I went underground. He helped fake my death, signed off on the witness protection transfer, kept my real location off the books. If he's still at FBI Boston, if he still answers the old emergency signal, we have a chance. And if he doesn't, Vincent didn't answer. He just pulled out a burner phone and started dialing. The call connected, rang 4 times. Then a voice, Mercer. Vincent's hand shook slightly as he spoke. 15 years of silence. 15 years of being dead, ended with 7 digits and a coded phrase from a life he'd buried. Identification 77 Delta. Primary field operative Vincent Caldwell requesting emergency contact protocol. Long silence on the other end. Then Vincent, just his name, but the way Mercer said it, shocked disbelief, something close to grief. Oh my God, Mercer continued. 15 years, we buried you. Betty died thinking you were dead. I stood at your graveside and... I know, Vincent said. His voice was tight. I'm sorry, but Vero's still active, Ray. He's about to eliminate a civilian and his son in 19 days, and I have proof. Another pause. Then Mercer's voice shifted personal to professional in one breath. Yes, send it, encrypted, use the old protocol. Vincent pulled out his laptop and started uploading files to a secure federal server. I watched the progress bar crawl across the screen. Audio recordings, document scans, surveillance photos, everything we'd gathered. 5 minutes later, Mercer's voice came back through the phone. I'm seeing it now. Jason Morgan's voice on the intercept. Marco Varro confirming elimination timeline. The LLC paper trail. The 2006 photo comparison proving Chloe Vero's placement. Vincent, this is RICO-level evidence. Money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder fraud. Multiple federal charges. Can you move on it? Vincent asked. I'm already moving. 2 parallel actions starting now. First, legal re-identification process for you. Emergency petition to reverse your 2008 death certificate, restore your social security number, reinstate your federal credentials. I'll push it through as a witness protection complication, which it technically is. Should take 48 hours. And second, comprehensive surveillance warrant for the entire Varo network. Jason Morgan, Marco, Varo, Chloe, Varo, Dr. Harold Reeves, every LLC and shell company on your list. Full electronic monitoring, GPS tracking wiretaps. We'll know every move they make from now until we arrest them. I felt something release in my chest. Federal protection, real law enforcement. Not just two men hiding in a cabin, but the full weight of the FBI. Timeline, Vincent asked. Warrant approval takes 48 hours. We need a federal judge to sign off, and I need to brief my supervisor. But once it's live, we'll have everything. Locations, communications, financial transactions. We'll build an airtight case and move before they can execute their February 11th plan. So we wait, Vincent said. You wait, and you stay invisible. You're civilians now, Vincent. You've done your part, gathered evidence, protected the target, made contact. Let us take it from here. Don't do anything that compromises the investigation. Don't confront Jason. Don't approach Varo. Just stay low for 48 hours. Understood, Vincent said. I'll call you back when the warrant's live, Mercer said. Vincent, it's good to have you back, even if you were never really gone. The line started to disconnect. Then Mercer's voice came back urgent. Wait, Vincent, there's something you should know. Something that just came through dispatch this morning. What? Jason Morgan walked into New Hampshire State Police 2 hours ago. Concord Station. He's trying to turn himself in. Vincent's face went white. What did he say? Vincent asked. He told the desk sergeant he has information about a conspiracy involving elder abuse and financial fraud. Asked for witness protection. Said his life was in danger from organized crime figures. The sergeant took a preliminary statement and kicked it upstairs. It'll hit my desk within the hour. I stared at Vincent. Jason was confessing, trying to save himself. But the local police, Varo's local police, the ones Vincent said were compromised, had him now. Does Varo know? I asked. Vincent repeated the question into the phone. Unknown, Mercer said. If Varo has people inside that station and based on your 2007 files, he probably does, then yes, he knows. Which means he knows Jason's trying to flip. Which means the February 11th timeline just accelerated. Vincent finished. They'll move faster, maybe today, maybe tonight. I'm expediting the warrant, Mercer said. But Vincent, if Varo knows Jason's trying to turn, you need to prepare for the possibility that we're already too late. The transmitter crackled to life at 11:30 p.m. on January 24th. Chloe's voice colder than I'd ever heard it. We'd spent 2 days waiting for Mercer's federal warrant, waiting for Vincent's legal resurrection to finalize, waiting for Varo to make a move. The cabin felt smaller every hour, the walls pressing in. Then the receiver on Vincent's kitchen table activated. The metal box we'd given Jason, still carrying its hidden microphone, picked up an incoming call. Jason's voice first, hello. Then Chloe. But not the Chloe who'd called me dad at family dinners. Not the woman who'd smiled in wedding photos. This voice was mechanical, emotionally flat. My father said, after the transaction is completed at the end of February, you're no longer needed, she said. No preamble, no warmth. Just information delivered like a weather report. Do you know what that means? Silence on Jason's end. Then, Chloe, you can't... I advise you to think about yourself, she interrupted. This call is over. Click. The line went dead. But the transmitter stayed active. Through the speaker we heard Jason's breathing. Heavy, ragged. The sound of a man who just heard his execution notice delivered by his own wife. The breathing continued for nearly 2 minutes. Vincent and I sat frozen, listening. Then we heard movement, footsteps, a door, closing, silence. The woman who'd sat at our Thanksgiving table 4 years running, who'd called me dad, with perfect warmth, had just sentenced her husband to death, with the emotional inflection of a grocery list. That wasn't a warning, Vincent said quietly. That was a kill order, from his own wife, and she delivered it like she was canceling a subscription. I stared at the receiver. He knows now, for certain. No more speculation. Varo's going to eliminate him. Question is what he does about it, Vincent said. We got our answer at 7 a.m. the next morning. The GPS tracker still attached to Jason's Mercedes from weeks ago sent an alert. The car was moving. Vincent pulled up the map on his laptop. He's not going to his office. He's not going home. He zoomed in. That's downtown Concord, State Police Headquarters. Vincent grabbed his phone and dialed Mercer. Ray Jason Morgan just walked into New Hampshire State Police Headquarters. He's turning himself in. Mercer's response was immediate. Perfect. Don't move. Stay exactly where you are. I'm coordinating federal takeover of that interview right now. What if the local cops are compromised? I asked loud enough for Mercer to hear. They are, Mercer said through the speaker. But we've had federal presence ready since yesterday. 2 agents are already in that building waiting for this exact scenario. The moment Jason asks for protection, we take custody. Protective custody warrant is being signed by a federal judge as we speak. Vincent leaned back in his chair. Chloe's threat worked. 8 hours after she tells him he's dead, Jason chooses federal protection over Varro loyalty. If Varro knows, I started. He will, Vincent said. He's got people in that station. The question is whether we're fast enough. Mercer's voice came through the phone. We're moving now. Federal agents are entering the interview room. Jason Morgan is now in FBI custody. The hours that followed blurred together. Vincent set up a secure video link with FBI Boston. We watched through encrypted feed as Ray Mercer sat across from my son in a stark federal interview room. Jason looked smaller than I remembered. Thinner, his tie was loosened, shirt wrinkled, but his voice was steady. I want witness protection, he said. Full cooperation. Everything I know about Marco Varro's organization in exchange for protection from him. Mercer slid a legal pad across the table. Start talking. And Jason did. For 8 hours. He gave them everything. The timeline of the 3-year money laundering operation. $40 million moved through Morgan Capital Partners in 3 separate transactions. The dates, the amounts. The offshore account numbers, 11 accounts spanning 3 states and 2 countries. He confirmed the HVAC sabotage work order, number N H4471, filed December 23rd, his signature on the authorization. He detailed the Dr. Reeves conspiracy, the fake cognitive assessments, the plan to declare me mentally incapacitated, the February 9th timeline. He drew organizational charts, named names, provided addresses of shell companies in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Vermont. 27 different LLCs all connected to Varro's network. 3 states, $40 million, 27 shell companies, 11 offshore accounts. Jason had memorized the entire criminal empire. Mercer recorded every word. Federal stenographer typed every detail. The RICO case built itself in real time. Then late afternoon, Mercer's face filled the secure video screen. Vincent Arthur Jason's confession is complete. Full cooperation. He's signing witness protection agreements now. We have enough to take down Varro's entire network. The HVAC sabotage, Vincent asked. Confirmed, work order NH4471, December 23rd, 2022. Jason authorized it. He's not holding anything back. This is everything we need. Mercer paused, looked directly at the camera. Vincent, you're officially alive again as of 2 hours ago. Federal judge signed the restoration order. Your legal identity is restored. You're co-signing these witness statements as special investigator, Vincent Caldwell, former FBI agent. He smiled slightly. 15 years, and you're back. Vincent's hand was steady as he signed the digital documents. But I saw something in his eyes, relief, grief, exhaustion, all of it compressed into that moment. By evening, we thought it was over. Jason in federal custody, Vincent legally restored, evidence compiled, the net closing. Then Mercer's face appeared on the video feed one last time. Vincent Arthur Jason's in protective custody, full confession recorded and signed. We're initiating federal warrants for Marco Varro, Chloe Varro, and Dr. Harold Reeves. Arrests planned for dawn tomorrow. That's it, I asked. It's over. Mercer's expression shifted. Not quite. Our surveillance just picked up activity. Scanner intercepts. Varro knows Jason flipped. He's issuing movement orders tonight. Encrypted communications to his network. We're seeing preparations for departure. Vincent stood up and walked to his locked cabinet, pulled out his service weapon, checked the magazine. How long until he runs? Vincent asked. Best estimate 6 to 8 hours. He's liquidating assets, burning records, preparing evacuation. Classic shutdown protocol. Where's he going? Unknown. We're tracking all his known vehicles and associates. But Vincent, if he has an exit route we don't know about, he could be gone before dawn. Vincent holstered the weapon, looked at me. 15 years I've been waiting, he said. I'm not letting him disappear again. Vincent's voice cut through the cabin. 87 minutes, that's all we've got. He was already pulling on thermal gear, spreading a tactical map across the kitchen table. The scanner had crackled to life minutes earlier, intercepting Vero's encrypted transmission. Morgan betrayed us, Vero's voice had said through heavy static. Gather everything. Depart tonight. Then Chloe's response. Route confirmed. 90 minutes. Vincent traced his finger along the map. He'll take Route 9, northern route toward the Canadian border. It's the only gap in the federal net and he knows it. FBI's got checkpoints on routes 2, 3, and 89, but Route 9's open. Narrow road, minimal traffic crosses into Quebec 20 miles north of here. Can the FBI block it in time? I asked. No, they're mobilizing from Boston and Burlington. Best case they reach Route 9 in 2 hours. Vero will be across the border in 90 minutes. Vincent looked at me. We need a different approach. He picked up his phone and dialed. Eddie, it's Vincent. I need the township plow, the big one. Diesel Mac with the 12-foot blade. Yeah, tonight. I know it's late, but this is federal business. 20 minutes. Perfect. He hung up and grabbed his service weapon from the locked cabinet. What are you doing? I asked. Route 9 has one choke point bridge approach at mile marker 47. Narrow road guardrails on both sides. If we position a snowplow across both lanes, create a wall he can't drive through, we can hold him until FBI arrives. 15 years you've hunted him, I said. I'm not staying behind for the endgame. Vincent looked at me for a long moment. If this goes wrong, your son walks free and Vero disappears into Quebec forever. You understand that? I understand. Then let's go. 20 minutes later, we pulled up to the township maintenance depot. A massive orange snowplow sat in the lot diesel engine, already running keys in the ignition. Eddie, whoever he was, had come through. Vincent climbed into the cab. I followed, pulling myself up into the passenger seat. The truck smelled like diesel and road salt in winter. Vincent drove north on Route 9. The plow blade raised headlights cutting through falling snow. My phone showed 8:47 p.m. 87 minutes until Vero reached the border. 45 minutes until he reached mile marker 47. We had to be there first. The road was empty, dark. Just pine trees and snow, and the occasional reflective marker catching our headlights. There, Vincent said, pointing ahead. Bridge approach, narrowest point on the whole route. He pulled the snowplow perpendicular across both lanes, dropped the massive blade, and started pushing. The plow scraped against asphalt piling snow into a 12-foot wall that blocked the road completely. Get in the truck, Vincent said, pointing to his F-35. Oh, parked 50 yards back. When this goes down, stay low. I started walking toward the truck. My foot hit a patch of ice and went out from under me. I felt myself falling. Then Vincent's hand caught my arm. 62 and you're still trying to get yourself killed, he said. For just a moment, despite everything, I almost smiled. I made it to the F-35O and climbed inside. Vincent positioned himself behind the snowplow radio, in hand, weapon holstered but accessible. We waited. 10 minutes, 20. The snow kept falling. Then I saw them. Headlights approaching from the south, moving fast. Vincent's radio crackled. Target acquired. Route 9 mile marker 47. Send everyone. The headlights grew brighter. An armored black SUV accelerating as it came around the curve and saw the blockade ahead. It didn't slow down. It sped up. Varo was trying to ram through. The SUV hit the snow wall at what had to be to 47 miles per hour. Metal screamed. The vehicle plowed into the drift front end, burying itself in 12 feet of packed snow. The impact triggered both airbags, white explosions in the darkness. Then smoke started rising from the hood. Vincent was already moving, running toward the crashed SUV with a tactical baton in his hand. He smashed the driver's side window, reaching inside. For a moment, I thought Varo was dead. The driver's seat was empty, the airbag deflated. Then Vincent pulled open the back door and dragged someone out. Marco Vero, 58. The man whose scar I'd seen in photographs, whose voice I'd heard through transmitters, who'd orchestrated my son's corruption and my attempted murder. He was unconscious, bleeding from a cut on his forehead. Vincent pulled him clear of the smoking vehicle just as sirens cut through the night. Red and blue lights approached from both directions. State police from the south, FBI from the north. They'd timed it perfectly. The first cruiser stopped and officers piled out. One of them, FBI agent Ramirez 43 based out of Boston, approached Vincent with handcuffs ready. "Special Agent Vincent Caldwell?" Ramirez asked. That's me," Vincent said. Ramirez looked at Varro still unconscious on the frozen pavement. 15 years. We finally got him." Two state police officers pulled Chloe from the passenger side of the SUV. She was conscious, her face blank, no emotion at all. Just calculated assessment of a situation that had turned against her. They cuffed her on the ice beside her father. Varro started coming around, groaning eyes opening. His gaze found Vincent first, then swept to me, standing 50 feet away beside the F-35O. Recognition flashed across his face. "You," Varro said, his voice rough. "You have no idea what you've just done, old man." Ramirez pulled him to his feet. "Marco Varro, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, money laundering, racketeering, elder abuse. My son chose you over me," I said quietly, knowing he could hear me. "Now, we both lose everything." Varro's face twisted into something between rage and resignation as they loaded him into the federal vehicle. But before the door closed, he looked at me one more time. His lips moved, forming words I could read even from this distance. "Jason will never testify against me. Never." The door slammed shut. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text message. Block number. "Dad, we need to talk before the trial, please." Jason. I stood there in the falling snow, watching federal vehicles take Varro and Chloe away, holding a phone with my son's message asking to meet the son who'd tried to kill me, who'd confessed to everything, who now wanted to negotiate before testifying against the man who'd corrupted him. Vincent walked over, his breath fogging in the cold. "It's done," he said. 15 years, finally done. But it wasn't done. Not really. Because Varro's words echoed in my head, "Jason will never testify." And my son wanted to talk, and I had no idea if the battle we just won had actually saved anything at all. The coffee in the FBI waiting room tastes like rust, and I realize I haven't slept in 31 hours. Varro's in custody, Chloe's in custody, Jason's texted asking to meet, and I'm sitting in a plastic chair under fluorescent lights at FBI Boston headquarters at 11:47 p.m., staring at a vending machine that's been broken since I arrived 3 hours ago. The door opens. FBI Special Agent Ray Mercer, 54, walks in, carrying a manila folder. I'd only heard his voice before on phone calls through Vincent's speaker, but seeing him in person, I understand immediately why he and Vincent were partners. Same careful eyes. Same way of moving, like every room might contain a threat. "Mr. Morgan," he says, extending his hand. "I'm Ray Mercer. We've spoken but never formally met." I shake his hand. "Is it done? Marco Varro and Chloe Varro are being held without bail, Federal Detention Center. Your son is in protective custody, cooperating fully with prosecutors." He pauses. "And we signed an arrest warrant for Dr. Harold Reeves 2 hours ago. Manchester PD picked him up at his home. He'll be arraigned tomorrow morning." So it's over. The arrests are done. The trial starts in February. The door opens again. Vincent walks in from the hallway, looking more exhausted than I've ever seen him. Mercer stops mid-sentence and stares. "Vincent Caldwell," Mercer says quietly. "Jesus Christ, 15 years and they told me you were dead. We had a funeral. I stood there and—" "I know," Vincent says. "I'm sorry, Ray. I had to disappear. Varro's network. I know. I read your files." Mercer crosses the room and pulls Vincent into a brief, hard embrace. Close enough to dead, apparently. 15 years off grid hunting one man. They separate. Two old partners who'd thought they'd never see each other again. Mercer's eyes are wet. I watch them shake hands, exchange words I don't quite hear. They're celebrating. Vincent's alive. Varro's caught. The case closed after 15 years. And all I feel is hollow exhaustion. I just want to go home. Except I don't have a home anymore. The house on Birchwood Road is condemned, roof collapse system sabotaged, and the son I raised is in federal custody waiting to testify against the crime boss who corrupted him. Vincent sits down beside me. "You should get some rest." "Will there be a trial?" I ask. "Yes, federal RICO case. Probably 10 months of preparation, jury selection, testimony. Mercer says it'll start in February, run through most of the year." "Do you want to attend?" Vincent asks. I realize I have no choice. I need to see my son's face one last time before the cage door closes. "Yes," I say, "I'll attend." The trial begins in February 2023 and doesn't end until December. 10 months of testimony, hundreds of exhibits, dozens of witnesses. The federal prosecutor builds the RICO case piece by piece, money laundering conspiracy to commit elder abuse fraud, attempted murder. Jason testifies for 3 days, confirms everything: the offshore accounts, the shell companies, the HVAC sabotage order, the plan to declare me incompetent. He doesn't look at me once during his testimony. Chloe testifies for 1 day, mostly pleading the Fifth Amendment. Her attorney argues she was following her father's orders, didn't understand the full scope of the conspiracy. The jury doesn't believe it. Dr. Reeves testifies for 2 hours, his voice shaking, admitting he falsified cognitive assessments for money. His medical license is revoked before the trial even concludes. Marco Varro never testifies. His attorney puts up a defense, claiming Jason was the mastermind. Varro was just a legitimate businessman. The jury doesn't believe that either. 10 months compressed into 15 minutes of verdicts on December 15th. Judge Catherine Brennan presides, her voice steady as she reads the sentences. The judge's voice blurs. Only Jason's name pulls me back into the room. Marco Varro conspiracy to commit murder, money laundering, racketeering, elder abuse. 28 years federal prison, no possibility of parole. Chloe Varro conspiracy, money laundering, fraud, 14 years federal prison. Dr. Harold Reeves conspiracy to commit fraud, falsification of medical records, 9 years federal prison, permanent revocation of medical license. Jason Morgan. I sit forward. Mr. Morgan, the evidence shows you were targeted and groomed by the Varro organization, beginning approximately 6 years ago. Your cooperation with federal investigators has been complete and credible. The court acknowledges that while you participated in criminal conspiracy, you were manipulated from the outset and never directly ordered injuries to your father. Judge Brennan looks at Jason. That does not absolve you. 5 years federal prison. In recognition of your full cooperation with federal prosecutors, the government has filed a motion for sentence reduction. You will serve a minimum of 4 years with the possibility of early release contingent on continued cooperation with ongoing investigations. The evidence showed Varro manipulated Jason from the beginning, not just corrupted him, targeted him, planted Chloe beside him, groomed him progressively over 6 years. The conspiracy wasn't Jason's betrayal, it was Jason's victimization. It doesn't make me feel better. When the clerk finishes reading the sentence, Jason looks at me from the defendant's dock. Just once, 2 seconds. Our eyes meet across 40 feet of courtroom. I don't know if it's apology or resentment. Then he lowers his head and the marshals lead him away. After the verdict, I sit alone in the courtroom while everyone files out. Vincent touches my shoulder, but doesn't say anything. He knows there are no words that help. I'm gathering my coat when I notice the envelope on my seat. No return address. Jason's handwriting in the same J-curve I'd taught him when he was 16. I open it. Inside, a single photograph. Faded, creased from years in storage. Jason at 6 years old, sitting on my shoulders at a Vermont lake. Summer, 1997. Before Eleanor got sick. Before everything fell apart. He's grinning at the camera, his hands in my hair. I'm looking up at him, smiling. I turn the photograph over. 3 words written in Jason's handwriting. I remember Dad. That's all. No explanation, no apology, just 3 words in a photograph from 26 years ago. The apology I'd waited 11 months to hear arrives in silence. I sit there holding the photograph, watching the courtroom empty, understanding that forgiveness isn't a decision you make once. It's a door you leave open even when every instinct says to bolt it shut. Vincent Caldwell stands in a room full of strangers wearing a uniform he hasn't touched in 15 years. I hold Jason's photograph, the one he left on my courtroom seat, and watch from the front row as Ray Mercer pins a medal on Vincent's chest. FBI Boston Ceremony, Hall. January 2024, 6 weeks after the verdicts. Vincent in full dress uniform, looking uncomfortable under the fluorescent lights. The room is filled with federal agents Vincent has never met. The old guard, his former colleagues, are mostly retired or dead. But Mercer insisted on the ceremony. You gave 15 years, he'd said. The Bureau owes you recognition. Mercer stands at the podium, now reading from prepared remarks. Special Agent Vincent Caldwell gave 15 years to one case. He says, "Tonight we return what was stolen: his name, his identity, his place among us." What Mercer doesn't say, what no one in this room knows except me, is how Vincent survived those 15 years. nameless in a dark cabin 12 miles outside Concord. No friends, no family. Just a police scanner, old case files, and a municipal snowplow he drove through winter nights to pay for food. No one knows he lived like a ghost hunting one man, waiting for the moment when he could finally stop hiding. Vincent doesn't cry when Mercer pins the medal. His face stays composed, professional, but I see his hands shake slightly as he accepts it. Afterward in the lobby, Vincent finds me. "I thought medals mattered once," he says quietly. "Now I just want to sleep without checking the perimeter." I can't even shake his hand without crying. He saved my life. And somehow, in saving mine, he got his own back. 2 months later, March 2024. I sit in a law office in Concord with Vincent beside me. The attorney, a woman in her 50s with reading glasses on a chain, slides documents across the mahogany desk. "The federal court judgment is final," she says. "The Eleanor Morgan Memorial Trust has been restored in full. $5.8 million plus $1.2 million in property damages and emotional distress compensation. Total recovery, $7 million. $7 million. Eleanor's memory monetized Wade returned with interest. Can money ever pay for trust?" The attorney looks at me expectantly. "What are your plans for the funds, Mr. Morgan?" I glance at Vincent. We've talked about this. Late nights in his cabin after the trial ended when neither of us could sleep. "My wife wanted that money to matter," I say. "She built that trust to protect me, to give me security after she was gone. I think she'd want me to use it to build something new." I turn to Vincent. Would 40 acres in Vermont be enough? Vincent's expression shifts surprise, then something that might be relief. "More than enough," he says. "I know a place. Pine forest, small stream, good soil. Far enough from cities to breathe." "Then that's what we'll do." I look back at the attorney. "Set up the purchase. 2 properties, main house for me, smaller cabin for Vincent. And if there's money left, I want to establish a fund for elder abuse prevention, Eleanor's name on it." The attorney makes notes. I'll prepare the paperwork. Vincent leans over and says quietly, "I'll teach you how to run a snowplow." Despite everything, I almost smile. July 2024, Vermont farm, 7 months into Jason's sentence. The letter arrives on a Tuesday. Federal prison return address. Jason's handwriting on the envelope. I sit with it for 3 days before opening it, as if the envelope itself might detonate. Words can't kill me anymore. Only disappointment can. Finally, Thursday morning, I open it. The letter is short, 2 pages handwritten. "Dad, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I just want you to know I finally understand what I destroyed. You trusted me. Mom trusted me. I took that trust and used it as a weapon. I can't undo that. I can't give you back the son you lost. But I need you to know I remember who I was before. I remember the workshop. I remember you teaching me to build things that lasted. I destroyed all of that. I'm sorry." That's all. No excuses, no requests, just acknowledgement. I sit at the Vermont farmhouse kitchen table, the house we built with Eleanor's money, on land she would have loved, and write back. 1 page. "Oi, Jason, you took away the memory of the son I loved. You tried to kill me. You conspired with criminals who wanted me dead or institutionalized. Time won't heal that. You need years to understand what you've done. Maybe someday, maybe after you've served your sentence, after you've rebuilt some version of yourself that isn't corrupted, maybe then we can talk. But not now. I'm leaving the door open. Barely, but open. Don't make me regret it." I sign it, seal the envelope. Eleanor would tell me to forgive him completely, to visit the prison to embrace him, to say all is forgiven. But I'm not Eleanor. I'm just a man who survived his son's attempt to murder him. And I'm allowed to take my time deciding if reconciliation is even possible. I walk to the mailbox at the end of the long Vermont driveway. The July sun is warm, the pine trees smell like summer, and for the first time in 18 months, I feel something close to peace. As I place the envelope in the mailbox and raise the flag, I hear footsteps behind me. Vincent appears on the porch with 2 coffee mugs. "You sent it?" he asks. I nod. "Good," Vincent says. He hands me a mug. "Then it's time I showed you something. Eleanor's garden plan, the one you kept in the attic all these years. I found it when we were moving your things." Eleanor's garden plan. Detailed drawings, plant lists, seasonal rotations. She designed an entire garden for a property she'd never seen, but the dimensions match this land almost exactly. Like she knew you'd end up here someday. I take the coffee, feel its warmth in my hands. "It's show me," I say. And as we walk back toward the house, I understand the past and future converge in places we never expect. Eleanor's dreams, Vincent's exile, Jason's betrayal, my survival. All of it leading here, to 40 acres in Vermont, to a life I'm learning to build from pieces that shouldn't fit together, but somehow do. The deed says Montgomery County, Vermont, but Vincent calls it what Eleanor would have home. April 2024. We stand on 50 acres of pine-covered hills, and I'm holding the garden plan Vincent found the one Eleanor drew in July 1994, 30 years ago. The paper is yellowed, creased from years, folded in an attic box, but her handwriting is clear property dimensions, sun angles, drainage patterns, soil composition notes. The measurements match this land almost exactly. How did she know? I ask. Vincent looks out across the property, small streams cutting through melting snow, clean mountain air sharp in our lungs. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she just drew plans for a place she hoped existed, and you found it. But I don't think that's true. Eleanor was too precise, too deliberate. She sketched this 20 years before the conspiracy began, before Jason met Chloe, before Vero entered our lives. Like she knew someday I'd need wilderness refuge and wanted to make sure I had a blueprint. She drew this in 1994, I say. Told me someday we'd need quiet. I didn't believe her. I thought we were fine in Concord, fine in the house on Birchwood Road. I thought we'd grow old there. Eleanor knew you better than you knew yourself, Vincent says. Contractors arrived the next day. Breaking ground on the main house, for me, 2 bedrooms, large kitchen, mechanical workshop attached. And 200 yards into the trees, a smaller cabin for Vincent. Separate, but close enough. The restitution money makes it all possible. $7 million can't buy back trust, can't erase what Jason did, but it can buy land, it can build shelter, it can create space for 2 broken men to figure out what comes after survival. 50 acres, Vincent says, watching the excavator dig foundation trenches. You could get lost out here and never want to be found. That's the point, I say. Mid-April, the mechanical workshop rises behind the main house foundation. Just framing and roof so far, but enough that I can start moving equipment inside. I unpack my 37-year-old engineering kit, the one Eleanor bought me the month we got married. Calipers, micrometers, precision, measuring tools all untouched since she died. Still in their original foam padding waiting. 37 years. I say, holding the calipers up to catch sunlight through the unfinished walls. Eleanor bought these in 1987. I haven't opened this case since her funeral. Vincent appears in the workshop doorway. Sold the snowplow today, he says. Township bought it for $8,400. 15 years of midnight routes through Vermont winters, and I don't miss it for a single second. Vincent's snowplow, $8,400. 15 years of survival, bought a cabin foundation. Every tool has its season, then becomes someone else's beginning. Oh, what will you do instead? I ask. Vincent leans against the doorframe. Learn to sleep past sunrise. Maybe build furniture. Maybe just sit on a porch and drink coffee without scanning for threats. Seems like a start. Sounds like retirement, I say. Sounds like living, Vincent corrects. Late April, the temporary cabin is habitable. Insulation drywall, basic plumbing. Not finished, but livable. Vincent moves into his cabin. I move into mine. That first night I lie in an unfamiliar bed, in an unfamiliar place, listening to pine branches move in the wind. No traffic sounds, no neighbors, just forest and darkness and silence. I wake at dawn to sunlight cutting through unfinished window frames. And I realize I didn't check the door locks before bed, didn't listen for footsteps, didn't scan the perimeter through the windows, didn't wake up 3 times checking that my phone was charged in case I needed to call for help. For the first time in 2 years, since January 2022, since the blizzard, I forgot to be afraid. The door is unlocked. I stare at it for 90 seconds expecting panic to kick in. It doesn't. I don't care. There's no one here who wants to hurt me. No son planning my elimination. No crime boss targeting my trust fund. Just Vermont forest and a man who's learning what peace feels like. I make coffee in the temporary kitchen, just a hot plate and a kettle, but it works. Step out onto the unfinished porch. The air smells like pine and wet earth and spring. Vincent appears from his cabin, walking the 200 yards between us. Sleep well, he asks. I don't remember, I say. That means yes. He nods like he understands exactly what that means. We drink coffee in silence, watching the sun climb over the trees, and I think Eleanor wanted me to find this. Not revenge, not victory over Jason or Vero, just this peace, not forgiveness, not closure, just the absence of war. After Vincent heads back to work on his cabin, I walk to the main house construction site. The foundation is poured, framing underway. In a month, maybe two, it'll be finished. A real home. I'm standing there, imagining what the finished house will look like when I notice something on the workbench inside the half-built workshop. A wooden box, small cedar weathered. I hadn't put it there. I walk in. The box has Eleanor's handwriting on the lid, "For Arthur, when the war is over." Vincent appears in the workshop doorway behind me. "I found it in the last crate from Birchwood Road," he says quietly. "The storage company pulled it from the attic before the house was demolished. It was wrapped in an old wool sweater with your name on it. I thought," he pauses, "I thought you should find it yourself, when you were ready." I kneel down and open it. My hands shake as I open it. Inside, garden plans. More detailed than the map, Vincent found planting schedules, seed varieties, seasonal rotation charts, and seed packets dated 1998, professionally preserved in vacuum-sealed pouches. Tomatoes, beans, herbs, everything labeled in Eleanor's precise script. And beneath them, a letter, folded once, my name on the outside. I unfold it with trembling fingers. "If you're reading this, you survived something I didn't live to see." Eleanor's handwriting, Eleanor's voice reaching across 26 years. "I don't know what you survived, Arthur, but I know you. And I know that when the war is over, whatever war finds you, you'll need a garden. You'll need soil under your fingernails and seeds that turn into life. You'll need to build something that grows instead of something that destroys. Start with tomatoes. They're forgiving. And remember, gardens don't erase the past. They just give you something to do with your hands while time does the healing." I sit there in the Vermont dirt holding Eleanor's letter, and for the first time since the blizzard, I let myself cry. Vincent's birthday cake is burnt on one side and raw in the middle, and it's the most beautiful thing I've seen in 2 years. He sets it on the farmhouse table with the kind of pride a child shows, bringing home their first art project. September afternoon, light pours through the new kitchen windows, turning the lopsided chocolate disaster into something almost luminous. "I found a cookbook at the general store in town," he says. "The lady at the counter said it was foolproof. She lied." I stare at the cake, then at Vincent, and something catches in my chest. He's been practicing, learning, creating traditions we never had when we were young. Two boys who grew up in the same Philadelphia neighborhood, lost each other to careers and life, and then to 15 years of silence and grief. Now, here we are. 66 and 65, starting over in a Vermont farmhouse with a broken oven and a cookbook that lied. "It's perfect," I tell him, and I mean it. "You're 66 today, Arthur." Vincent lights the candles, all 66 of them, crowded onto the collapsed cake, like survivors on a life raft. That's something worth celebrating. He's right. A year ago, I wasn't sure I'd see 66. A year ago, I was face down in a snowdrift on Route 93 at 2 in the morning, hypothermia pulling me under my son's mansion, glowing warm 2 miles behind me. The fact that I'm sitting here in a Vermont farmhouse with a burnt cake and a living ghost is nothing short of impossible. Margaret arrives at 5 with her famous apple pie, the one that won the county fair 3 years running. Bill Townsend follows 20 minutes later with a bottle of Vermont whiskey he's been saving for something special. They've become our people. In these 8 months, the neighbors who helped us plant Eleanor's garden in May, who showed up with casseroles when Vincent had the flu in July, who treat us like we've always belonged here, instead of like 2 broken men who arrived in April carrying more ghosts than belongings. We eat dinner at the table, Vincent refinished in June pot. Roast I actually cooked without burning potatoes from our own garden. Green beans Margaret brought from her kitchen. The conversation flows easy, punctuated by laughter that doesn't feel foreign anymore. Bill tells a long story about his grandson's little league game that ends with the wrong kid running the wrong direction. Margaret asks about our winter preparations. Have we stacked enough wood? Have we checked the roof? Do we need help before the first snow hits? Nobody mentions the trial. Nobody mentions Varro or Jason or the 11 months we spent sitting in federal courtrooms watching my son testify against the man who'd corrupted him. Nobody mentions the verdicts. The sentences the December afternoon, when marshals led Jason away, and he turned to look at me across 40 feet of courtroom, and I still don't know what I saw in his eyes. That life exists in a different world, a different timeline. Here in this farmhouse on 50 Vermont acres, I'm just Arthur Morgan, not a mark, not a victim, not a cautionary tale about trusting the wrong people, just a man who tends a garden and splits firewood and occasionally burns dinner. The cake tastes exactly as terrible as it looks. We eat every crumb. After Margaret and Bill leave, Vincent and I sit on the porch in the cooling September air. The sun is going down behind the pine trees, painting the sky orange and pink over the ridgeline. Somewhere in the distance, a stream moves over rocks with a sound like quiet conversation. You doing okay? Vincent asks. It's the question he's been asking since January, since the snowdrift, since the cabin and the files and the scanner crackling to life, and everything that followed. He asks it differently now than he did in those first weeks, less urgent, less checking for damage. More like a man who already knows the answer, but asks because asking is how he shows he cares. Better than I expected, I say. Worse than I pretend. Vincent nods. That's enough for him. He doesn't push for more. The letter from Jason came in July. 2 pages handwritten federal prison return address. I sat with it for 3 days before I opened it. When I finally did, I read it twice, folded it carefully, and put it in the cedar box. Eleanor left me the one Vincent found in the storage crate from Birchwood Road, wrapped in a wool sweater with my name on it. The box that held her garden plans and her letter and seeds she'd preserved for a war she knew was coming, even if she couldn't name it. Jason's letter lives beside Eleanor's now. I don't know what that means yet. Maybe nothing, maybe everything. You think about him? Vincent asks. Every day, I say. Less than I used to, more than I want to. Vincent is quiet for a moment. The stream keeps talking in the distance. I think about Betty, he says finally. Every day. I think about the 15 years she spent grieving a man who wasn't dead. I think about the cancer she fought alone, because I was hiding in a cabin with maps on the walls. He pauses. I can't fix that, can't go back, can't give her those years. All I can do is make sure the years I have left count for something. I look at him, really look at him. The gray beard, the lines around his eyes, the hands that have split more firewood this summer than most men half his age. 15 years of guilt, wearing a human face, learning how to sit still on a September porch without scanning the tree line for threats. She'd be proud of you, I say. Maybe, Vincent says, or maybe she'd tell me I was a stubborn fool who made everything harder than it needed to be. Both, I say, definitely both. He almost smiles. November arrives quietly, the way Vermont winters announce themselves. One morning you wake up and the fields are white and you realize the season changed while you were sleeping. Vincent and I stand on the porch watching the first snow accumulate, neither of us speaking, both of us thinking about that other snow. The January blizzard that broke my roof and my furnace and my phone line. The snow I lay down in on Route 93 at 2 in the morning. The snow that was falling outside Jason's mansion when he closed the door in my face and went back to his wine glass. Same snow, different world. You ready for winter? Vincent asks. I've got 40 cords of wood and a furnace I personally inspected every valve on, I say. I'm ready. Vincent laughs, a real one, the kind that starts in his chest. 37 years as a mechanical engineer, and you finally found a practical use for it. December settles over the farm like a held breath. The garden sleeps beneath its blanket of snow and mulch. Eleanor's tomatoes gave us more than we could eat this summer. I canned 17 jars, lined them up on the kitchen shelf, the way she used to line up her preserves in the house on Birchwood Road. The chickens huddle in the coop Vincent built in October, complaining loudly every morning when I bring their feed. I read the books Eleanor left behind. Historical novels, gardening manuals, a collection of Mary Oliver poems with passages underlined in her handwriting. The underlined ones are always about survival, about paying attention, about how the world keeps offering itself to you, even when you've stopped believing it will. On December 20th, Margaret invites us to her grandson's Christmas pageant at the elementary school in town. We sit in the gymnasium, watching 7-year-olds in shepherd costumes trip over their robes and forget their lines and grin at their parents in the audience with the particular joy of children who have no idea they're imperfect. I think about Christmas 2 years ago, the last normal one before I understood what was being planned. Jason had called on Christmas morning. I remember sitting in the kitchen on Birchwood Road, with Coffee Eleanor's photograph on the shelf, listening to my son's voice and believing he was the person I'd raised, that the warmth in his voice was real, that the family I thought I had still existed. The memory doesn't destroy me the way it used to. It sits in my chest like a stone, present permanent, but no longer sharp enough to cut. Some griefs don't leave, they just become part of the landscape. You learn to live around them the way a tree grows around a fence post. Vincent drives us home through falling snow. The flakes catch in the headlights, swirling and dancing like they did the January night. But everything is different now. Then I was walking toward catastrophe one frozen step at a time. Now, I'm riding toward home. New Year's Eve finds us by the fireplace, no grand celebration planned. Vincent pours 2 glasses of the whiskey Bill brought in September. The clock on the mantel ticks toward midnight. Snow falls steady outside the windows, accumulating on the fields, the barn, the sleeping garden, where Eleanor's seeds are waiting, under 3 inches of frost, for a spring they've never seen but somehow know is coming. This time 2 years ago, Vincent starts, then stops. Hell, Arthur. 2 years ago I was alone in that cabin listening to a police scanner and driving a snowplow through midnight blizzards to pay for groceries. And you were face down in a snowdrift, I say, thinking about Eleanor, wondering if I'd see her again. And now, I look around the room, the fireplace Eleanor never saw but somehow planned for. The bookshelves Vincent built in November, filled with her novels and his woodworking manuals side by side. The jar of tomatoes on the kitchen shelf. The cedar box on the side table holding 2 letters from 2 women, one gone one, never really known, and 1 letter from a son. I'm still deciding how to forgive. Now I'm here, I say. That's enough. Vincent raises his glass. I raise mine. To Eleanor, he says. To Betty, I say. We drink. The snow falls harder outside, and I think about January 14th, 2023, the blizzard that took my house and nearly took my life. The son who closed his door and went back to his wine glass. The man who came back from the dead to pull me out of the snow. None of it should have led here. To 50 acres in Vermont, to a burnt birthday cake, and a garden built from 30-year-old seeds, and a friendship rebuilt from 15 years of silence and grief. That blizzard took everything I thought I had, I say quietly. My home, my son. The story I'd been telling myself about my family for 65 years. I pause. But it gave me back something I didn't know I'd lost. A brother, and a place that feels more like home than anywhere I've ever lived. Vincent doesn't respond with words. He just refills my glass and settles back into his chair, and we watch the snow fall together through the window. Outside, the wind moves through the pine trees the way it moved through them on that January night, the same sound, the same cold, the same darkness. But inside there is warmth and firelight and the quiet particular to 2 people who have been through the worst together and come out the other side still standing. The clock strikes midnight. A new year begins. And for the first time in 66 years, I understand what Eleanor meant when she said that home isn't a place you find. It's a place you build board by board, seed by seed, year by year, with the people who show up when everything else falls away. The snow continues, the fire burns, and somewhere in a federal prison my son is sleeping, and I don't know yet if I will ever fully forgive him, and I have finally made peace with not knowing. That's enough for tonight. That's enough. And to you listening to my story, remember this. I was 65 when I learned the hardest lesson of my life. I thought blood meant loyalty. I trusted too easily because I wanted to believe family would never hurt me. Don't make my mistake. Never stop watching. Never stop questioning even when it's the people you love most. I believe God put me through this nightmare for a reason. When Vincent appeared after 15 years, I understood family isn't who you're born to. It's who shows up in the blizzard. I lost a son, but gained a brother. This isn't your typical grandma revenge story. It's about an old man who discovered his life was just beginning. Whether you came for grandma revenge tales or something deeper, I hope you found truth here. What would you have done in my position? Would you have seen the signs I missed? Leave a comment below. I read everyone. If this moved, you share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe to Her Family Revenge for more stories about survival and second chances. Thank you for staying until the very end. While this story contains some fictionalized elements for narrative purposes, the message at its heart is real. Sometimes the storm that destroys everything clears the way for something better.